"Come here, kid," the tattered voice of the now dying demon of the mist Zabuza Momochi called out to the young blonde Konoha shinobi. Naruto cautiously approached the dying man, who just moments ago had gone from being an enemy to helping his team defeat a horde of bandits. "Yes, Zabuza? I need a favor, kid. Cough. I need you to kill me," Zabuza managed between coughs of blood. At the sight of the blonde's shocked face, he decided to elaborate. "Listen up, kid. The world as you've seen is not a forgiving place. Not only do I want to help you get your first kill out of the way, I'm also ensuring that my sword is taken care of. If I die of my wounds, Kubikirabocho can be taken by anyone. But if you kill me, then the sword will only recognize you as its master. Carry on my legacy." Naruto was stunned, but the respect he had for the man in front of him was too great to deny him this one request. "I'll do it, Zabuza. I'll be your legacy," he said with a firm conviction. "Place my hand on yours," Zabuza instructed. The young blonde did as he was told, and Zabuza, with some of his dwindling reserves, placed a small seal on Naruto's hand. "That will allow you to see all the instructions you need in your dreams tonight. It will also give you confirmation if you ever meet my last living teammate Kisame. If you do, tell him the will of the blades calls on you to return, and teach the next generation. From there he'll know what to do. Now do it, kid, before I die of old age." Zabuza laughed as he spit up blood. Naruto steeled himself, and with shaky hands, plunged his kunai into Zabuza's chest. "Thank you, Naruto. Goodbye, my friend." "Goodbye, my friend," Naruto said, as tears rolled down his cheeks. "Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi looked down at the boy who had just taken his first life. "Even if it had been a mercy killing." "Yes, Naruto. You said that when a ninja dies in action or goes rogue, their body is destroyed on the spot, so that their secrets are kept, right?" "That's right. I don't know any fire jutsu, so would you do me a favor? Honor them and burn them, like true shinobi," Naruto said, not lifting his head, for fear if he did his tears would flow stronger than the tides below them. "Of course, Naruto, I should have enough chakra for at least that." Kakashi smiled slightly as he flashed through hand seals. The Konoha shinobi and the people of Waves watched as the bodies of two fallen shinobi returned to dust. That night, as Naruto slept, before his long journey home, as he slept, visions of his new blade filled his mind. A seal on the bottom of the handle that would release a scroll, one on the side of the pommel containing training weights, and what looked to be a wooden replica of the sword with seals on it that would make it heavier the more chakra that was added to it. After a much less eventful return to the Leaf, Kakashi had instructed the team to take some time off after they reported to the Hokage. He had not so subtly motioned to Sasuke that the two of them would go for one-on-one training later. The moment Naruto had been given clearance to leave his team, he made his way to their usual training ground and unsealed both the scroll and the practice sword from the hilt. The Bloody Mist style. This style relies heavily on speed, the silent killing technique, and the hidden mist jutsu. Naruto read aloud as he continued to scan through the scroll, before his eyes landed on the instructions for the hidden mist jutsu, as well as the water walking technique and the basic katas of the style. What most people didn't know was that Naruto had learned the secret of the shadow clones on the bridge in Waves. After his clones had dispelled from helping with the bridge, he'd remembered everything they learned, and even felt his chakra control increase when he had used them to walk along the sides of the bridge and smooth the mortar on the stones. So, creating a small bundle of 50 clones, Naruto instructed 25 to practice water walking, 20 to practice katas, and 5 to go to different points of the field and practice the hidden mist jutsu. While his clones were working on their assignments, Naruto placed the training weights on his arms, legs, and the vest-like weight over his chest. Once they were securely in place, the young blonde began adding chakra to the weights until they reached the desired weight. In total, the weights only equaled 50 pounds, but to Naruto it was a good start, as he began jogging laps around the training field. The burnt orange of sunset saturated the night sky as the novice swordsman laid in the open field, his chest rising and falling steadily as he absorbed the information of his clones. With only 5 clones working on the hidden mist jutsu, he had managed to learn the jutsu, but it still took a few minutes for him to completely cover the area. The drawback could be negated with the use of a shadow clone, while he distracted the opponent. However, that only worked if he was one-on-one. The plus side was if he were given a mission along the lines of assassination, he'd be able to roll the mist in, and in most cases make it look natural. The 25 clones working on water walking had also managed to cut down the time it took to learn the technique, and while he couldn't fight a prolonged battle on water like Kakashi or Zabuza, he could stay on the water and lightly jog for about 3 minutes before his control slipped. The goal was to be able to sprint on the water for an hour, before sparring with his clones on the water's surface for at least 20 minutes. The last 20 had given him a basic understanding of his new weapon, but he was still nowhere near proficient, or strong enough to swing the blade with the speed of its former master. Making his way back towards his apartment, Naruto made a quick detour by the library and checked out several books from the genin section. The books covered shinobi etiquette, basic battle formations for 4- and 3-man cells, geometry for studying the angle and velocity to hit targets at different angles with kunai and shuriken, diversion tactics, basic taijutsu styles, advanced jutsu theory, a scroll on the shunshin, and advanced stealth techniques. That night, as he slept, the young swordsman left a clone to study each book. With each clone only using enough chakra to sustain themselves, they managed to keep themselves sustained the entire night. The following morning, Naruto left the clones to reread the books until they dispelled on their own, while the original went to meet his team for their morning exercises. More like Kakashi will tell Sakura, and I to work on chakra control and physical conditioning, Naruto said, as he exited the apartment, only to be stopped by the clone studying etiquette. "Boss, you're gonna want to take a look at this," he said, handing the boy the book with a page opened. The original took the book from his clone and read the page over several times. "This is perfect. Reread the book for about another hour and then dispel. I'm gonna need the information when my team meets with Gigi." "Naruto Baka, you're late," Sakura yelled as her blonde teammate arrived at the training ground. "Note that Kakashi still isn't here, so your argument is invalid and pointless," he said coldly, over their trip back to the village and the day following it. Naruto had reevaluated his feelings for the pink-haired girl. Even when he was battered and bloody, the only thing she cared for was the Uchiha. "What the hell do you think you're saying, Baka? Don't try and be cool, you dope," she yelled, attempting to swing her fist at the young Uzumaki, only for her wrist to be snatched out of the air by the blonde. "I am not the punching bag for your emotional fits, Haruno," the blonde said coldly, as a storm of rage bore from his eyes into the young genin's soul. "I also feel I should inform you that I ordered a 730 evaluation to be conducted this afternoon, as I feel you are a danger to yourself and others in the field, as well as mentally unstable given your continued misconduct of attacking a fellow Konoha shinobi outside of a sanctioned spar." Sakura was shocked, first by the fact that Naruto had stopped her from hitting him, something he had never done before, and second by not only the fact that Naruto knew what a 730 evaluation was, but that he had the guts to call her on it. A smirk played on her lips as she remembered one of the statutes to calling a 730 hearing. "You can't do that, Baka. Only a superior officer can call for a 730. "You're right, I merely suggested it, and allowed Inochi Yamanaka to search my memories for the appropriate memories that would corroborate my testimony. He agreed with my assessment and relayed the information to the Hokage. Both men agreed that you were in need of the exam to determine your suitability for continued service in the shinobi forces. Naruto, such things should be sorted in-house before bringing them to the Hokage. You shouldn't go around your chain of command." Kakashi spoke as he arrived from behind the young blonde. "I didn't go around the chain of command. The Hokage asked to speak with me about my new sword and wanted to warn me that any surviving members of the 7 swordsmen, such as Kisame Hashigaki, who is still at large, may come looking for revenge and to reclaim Kubikurabocho." "But didn't Zabuza say Kisame would help you if you met?" Kakashi reminded him. "Kisame was only an example. Aside from him, there are another 5 of the 7 still out there. In addition to that, you have any number of missing ninja from Kiri who may seek to get back in their good graces by killing me. Kiri is also currently in a civil war. There's nothing saying the current Mizukage won't send out a squad to retrieve it from me. Currently it's known that 4 of the blades are missing. 2 are in the hands of Kiri's missing ninja. 1 is a S rank, and 1 is an A rank. The easiest option would be to fake a missing ninja and have me killed. The return of Kubikura Bocho would be a great moral boost to the regime. While we were having this informal conversation, he asked me how training was going and to give him details of the goings-on of our team in order to ensure that our team was prepared for the possibility of a Kiri assassination attempt on our next out-of-village mission. When I informed him of the goings-on of Squad 7, as is my duty to report when asked by the Hokage, he asked for my recommendation. I gave it to him. He also instructed me to deliver Squad 7 to his office when you arrived. Kakashi scowled at the thought of his genin going behind his back, but nodded. All right then, Squad. We shouldn't keep the Hokage waiting, he said flatly, before turning to lead his group to the tower. Hiruzen Sarutobi prided himself on his level-of-headed demeanor. On a normal day, he could listen to the most irritating of news and recommendations, most of which came from his civilian council. However, today was not one of those days. So in summation, you neglected the training of 2 of your students in favor of the 3rd, and while favoritism of any kind is not allowed, that 3rd student already had the most resources to begin with in the form of clan scrolls and training manuals. Your deliberate neglect led to the endangerment of your genin squad on their first C-rank mission. Hokage-sama, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Sasuke needs that extra training to avenge his clan, Sakura blurted out, before she shrunk back in fear at the cold glare the normally warm man sent her way. Don't think I've forgotten about you, Miss Haruno. Multiple accounts of assaulting a fellow Konoha shinobi and accusations of failure to adapt. You do know, Miss Haruno, that if you fail to show significant improvement within 6 months, you'll be recycled to the next senior shinobi class. Sakura paled at the thought of being separate from her Sasuke-kun. Please, Hokage-sama, I have improved. I learned the tree-walking technique. A simple chakra control exercise that should have been taught to you in the first month of your training, not when you were behind enemy lines in an active combat zone, Hiruzen chastised. Then what about Naruto? Wouldn't he be sent back too? Sakura questioned, trying to throw Naruto under the bus for causing their problems in the first place. Naruto Uzumaki can do what no other genin can do with the Shadow Clone Jutsu. I have several other skills under my belt. If necessary, I'm more than willing to demonstrate my new skills to you. That won't be necessary, Naruto-kun. Your new sensei will be more than happy to test your skills once you've both been acquainted with each other. New sensei Hokage-sama? Kakashi asked. Yes, Naruto is being removed from Team 7, as he has been requested for apprenticeship by Yugao Yuzuki, Konoha's top Kenjutsu expert. Sakura will have a 730 hearing to determine her mental competency, and if she passes, she will be tested. If she is found to have not improved, she will be recycled to the next academy class after the new restructure and Elder Danzo will be implementing. Sasuke will be reclassified as your apprentice, and you will receive several marks on your record, putting you on Jonin probation for the next year. Now everyone except for Genin Uzumaki is to vacate my office. With the other 3 shinobi exited the room, an elderly man wrapped in bandages and carrying a cane entered the room with a small smile. I have to thank you, Naruto-kun, Hiruzen, and I have been trying to reform the academy for the past several years, but the civilian council has been blocking us, citing that there was no evidence of a need to reform it in these times of peace. Danzo said, looking down at him. That's foolish at best, and willfully negligent at worst. In times of peace, we should have the best education. During a war, we need bodies. We would have to give the bare minimum instruction and send them off to fight. During peace times, we have the luxury of time for more in-depth instruction. Naruto spoke, remembering the book his clone had read the night before. The book that had been written by the bandaged man before him. Very well put, Naruto-kun. I see you have been doing a bit of individual study in your days since the academy. I look forward to seeing your progress during the Chunin exams in a few months. The elderly man said with slight pride, before removing a scroll from his robes. I'd like you to have this. is a scroll on my own jutsu, the vacuum bullet. Consider it my thanks for your indirect help with the academy. Naruto took the scroll and looked up at the man before him. Are you sure, Danzo-san? This seems like a valuable gift for indirect help. Think nothing of it, Naruto-kun. It's a bit selfish of me if I were being honest. I have no heir to pass my knowledge down to, so knowing that my knowledge may help to save a talented young shinobi's life is good enough for me. Besides, the strength your actions today will bring to the village will more than even the scales between us. Just know that once you have become acquainted with your new sensei, I will be calling on you for a C-rank mission to take care of some bandits in the northern part of the country. You see, Naruto-kun, Danzo here is one of the two individuals responsible for our major intelligence networks. The second is my old student Jiraiya. It is why he and Danzo are rarely in the same place at the same time. I see. That is why your student is rarely seen in the village. Though if you could convince your other wayward student to return, it would boost our morale and improve our medical program, Naruto said as he looked at his grandfather figure. I would if I could, Naruto-kun, but Tsunade is in a very emotional state. Hiruzen, that was almost 30 years ago. The woman has been using it as an excuse to shirk her responsibilities as a clan head and a kunoichi of this village. Tsunade has been through a lot, Danzo. She lost her lover and her brother. Is that all? Naruto spoke, surprising the two men. Every shinobi has lost people. Sasuke lost his entire clan in one night at the hands of his own brother. My parents were killed the night of my birth by the very beast that was sealed inside of me, and Kakashi lost his father and squad during the Third World War. Naruto-kun is right. Every shinobi has lost something important to them. Hiruzen sighed, seeing that his hands were tied. Grabbing a scroll from the nearby desk, he began to write down a message. Naruto-kun, meet your sensei at the main gate tomorrow morning. Track down Tsunade and tell her I am giving her orders to return to the village immediately. If she refuses to come with you, tell her you are authorized to follow and detain her. You and Yugao can train during the trip and use it as a chance to get to know each other. This will be another long-term C-rank mission, so get whatever affairs you have in order for at least a month of travel. Of course, I'll report in as soon as possible. Naruto spoke before being dismissed. The rest of Naruto's day was spent training with his clones on the Hidden Mist, Water Shockwave, Vacuum Bullet, Taijutsu Katas, and Kenjutsu Kata. After his training was complete, he paid his rent for the month and stopped by a shinobi shop for some extra kunai and a new wardrobe. Deciding to say a fond farewell to his orange jumpsuit, he instead opted for a black form-fitting tank top and cargo pants. Naruto couldn't help but stare for a moment at the beauty who stood before him. Her heart-shaped face was framed by long royal purple hair. Her red pouty lips were formed into a stoic expression. You must be Yugao-sensei, Naruto said with a smile. Yes, and you're Naruto Uzumaki, my new apprentice and wielder of the legendary Kubo Kirahocho. Now that we know each other's names, we should get moving. Danzodano's sources say Tsunade is north of here, High Okane. We need to arrive there quickly, before she runs out of gambling money and skips town. We can focus on your training during our return trip and make a small vacation out of it. Sounds good. You set the pace, and I'll keep with you. Naruto spoke in a surprisingly professional tone. Can you keep up with mid-Chunin speeds? Yugao asked. Naruto replied by forming a ram seal and dispelling his weights. I can now, let's go. Yugao nodded, taking note to ask the young Uzumaki about the amount of weight he was using for training. Deciding their current mission was more important, the two of them decided to take off with no further questions. It took several hours, moving at mid-Chunin speeds, before the pair made it into the small town of High Okane. The town mainly consisted of a handful of mansions and a couple of apartment complexes, but the largest buildings were the casinos. Dozens of the large casino hotels littered the streets as Naruto and Yugao walked towards the gates. Naruto looked at Yugao and removed his headband before sealing it and his blade in his arm. What are you doing, Naruto? It's one thing if a couple is walking around looking for Tsunade, But if she catches wine, 2 Konoha shinobi are looking for her. She'll bolt before we ever get close to her. Yugao almost kicked herself at the realization. Naruto-kun, would you mind standing watch while I go change into some civilian clothes? My Jonin outfit will give me away just as much as my headband. Of course, Yugao-sensei. Naruto nodded, looking at her. Actually, since it's just us, Naruto-kun, you can just call me Yugao. Calling me sensei during undercover ops may arouse some suspicion. Of course, Yugao-chan. I'll stand guard. That tree over there looks big enough for you to have cover, he said, pointing to a fairly wide tree. Yugao's cheeks flushed slightly at the boy's choice in honorifics, but she quickly hid it by moving behind the tree. Naruto leaned against the tree on the opposite side of the road, in order to draw the attention of anyone who happened to walk down the road. Speaking of attention, Naruto was trying not to pay attention to the form of a changing Yugao, who was facing away from him behind the tree. It proved to be mostly impossible, as the tree proved not to be thick enough to completely hide Yugao's form from the boy. With her back to him, Naruto could just make out the shape of her bubbly pale cheeks, as she bent over to remove her pants. The action also revealed a small Oni mask holding a tanto in its teeth tattooed, just below her left ass cheek. As he noticed his new sensei exit from her impromptu changing room, Naruto decided to steal his features, to avoid being caught peeking. Instead, he focused on her breathtaking form. Instead of the long-sleeved shirt, pants, and form-hiding vest, she now wore a pair of sandals, with leather straps that crisscrossed up her calves, and keyhole dress that exposed her E-cup cleavage. You look breathtaking, Yugao-chan, Naruto said, as he continued running his eyes over her. Yugao's cheeks flushed once again, as she looked down at the blonde boy. Damn it! How does this boy keep making me blush? It is nice to know he thinks I'm beautiful though, Yugao thought, as she tried to shake off the blush. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I'm glad you think so, because my boyfriend should think I'm beautiful. You're what now? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. My boyfriend, our cover will be you're an amazing gambler with a lot of disposable cash. If we can get you winning, we can lure Tsunade out. Now you're gonna be lovey. Kiss me, hold me, slap my ass every once in a while, but don't go overboard, or I'll rip your balls off. I promise to restrain myself if you allow me to buy you dinner and give you a foot job when we check into our hotel room tonight. My Naruto-kun, you wouldn't be asking me out on a date, would you? Yugao said teasingly. I wouldn't think of it until I passed the Chunin exams. Naruto smirked and kissed her hand. Yugao blushed slightly as she turned her head away from him. Save some of that for the gambling hall, Naruto-kun. Now tell me, do you have any pocket money to start with? Naruto nodded, pulling out his oversized frog wallet. I didn't know how long we'd be gone, so I decided to bring Gama-chan along with me. I went ahead and got enough Rio for long-term food and boarding. Yugao smiled slightly, looking down at the slightly shorter boy. Well, that's good, Naruto-kun, but that'll be your gambling money. The Hokage has already given us an operating budget. As she finished speaking, a woman in a blank umbu mask, with the word "NE" written on it, dropped down in front of them. Naruto-san, Danzo-sama ordered Root in the area to report to you any news found on Tsunade. She is currently at the Valor Casino playing the slots and waiting on a poker tournament to start. I have already entered you and switched your dealer out with a Root agent. Meanwhile, I and other agents will serve as servers and other patrons while feeding you intel through this earpiece. She explained, handing him the earpiece. Naruto nodded, thanking the green-haired woman. Thank you. What is your name, by the way? You may call me Fu, Naruto-san, the woman said with a bow. Naruto nodded, shaking the young woman's hand. All right, Fu. I look forward to working with you. I'm going to head to the casino now and try to earn some extra playing money. Of course, Naruto-san. We've already rented the two of you a room and left several copings of the basics of poker in it. This way you can create several shadow clones to learn the game quickly before the tournament. That won't be necessary. You see, I grew up in the red light district. The money Gigi gave me only covered bills and a small amount of food. I made money for shinobi gear and clothes working as a broom boy at one of the gambling dens. I learned pretty much all the games, including poker. Naruto smiled and kissed the back of her hand. Thank you for your help though. I look forward to seeing the beautiful face under that mask when the time comes. All right, Casanova, let's get going, Yugao said, grabbing him by the hand, leading him towards the casino. Yugao was astonished at the skill Naruto had when it came to gambling. He hadn't even been getting help from the root at this point. He'd already somehow managed to get a hold of 500,000 Ryo, between the roulette table, the blackjack table, and the craps tables. The kicker was, since Naruto had used his own wallet, he would get to keep the money he won. Naruto smiled, patting Yugao's upper thigh, while making it look like he was patting her ass. Love, would you go and get me Jack and Coke? He said, before placing another small stack of chips on 42. Yugao wondered why he would ask her for that, before it hit her. You evil bastard, you're gonna fake getting drunk before the tournament to throw everyone off. If Hokage-sama didn't want to put you on display during the Chunin exams, I'd recommend you for a promotion for this. Naruto's winning streak continued well into the tournament, with Yugao bringing him numerous Jack and Cokes throughout, until only he and Tsunade were left. The only reason Tsunade had remained this long was because she kept buying back in. Now she was down to her last few chips, which she threw in and Naruto raised against. Damn it, I can't call that, Tsunade growled. Then how about a bet, ma'am? Naruto smirked, looking her over. What kind of bet, brat? Tsunade raised an eyebrow, looking down at her cards. I'll go all in exchange you bet that necklace, and agree to do me one favor of my choice after the match. Tsunade looked down at the 3 kings she currently held in her hand. Deal, brat, what do you want anyway? Looking to cop a feel in front of your girlfriend? She laughed, trying to tease him. Naruto, for his part, simply stuck his tongue out at the woman and grinned. Ladies first. He smirked. Tsunade grinned, and amidst a small amount of clapping placed her pair of kings on the table, resulting in a 3 of a kind. Nice try, kid. But you lose. Naruto merely smiled. I believe that's my line, beautiful, Naruto said, throwing down a Jack and a 10, resulting in a straight. Tsunade's jaw dropped as she looked at the cards on the table. I'll meet you in room 204 in 10 minutes to discuss that favor. 10 minutes later, Tsunade stood in front of Naruto in his hotel room. All right, kid, let's get this over with, she said, handing him the necklace, before she grabbed his hand and moved it inside her top, allowing him to freely grope her breast. Wow, the bragging rights on groping the 5th Hokage are going to be amazing, Naruto grinned, squeezing her breast. Excuse me, you said the favor was going to be copping a feel, not being dragged back to Konoha, Tsunade yelled, slapping his hand away. No, you said getting a feel. Do you remember what my answer was? Naruto smirked. Tsunade's eyes widened, and her skin paled as she remembered that he had only stuck his tongue out at her. What makes you think I'll go back? It's not like you or your little girlfriend could force me to go back. Simple. My girlfriend is an umbu, who I'm confident could subdue your assistant, and I placed a chakra suppression seal on your chest when you put my hand in your top, he said, pulling her top open, revealing the tag on her right nipple. There are more than enough undercover shinobi in this hotel to subdue you if you try to run. It's not just a favor to me, but an order from the 3rd Hokage for you to return to Konoha and head up a new medical program, though I'm sure if the old man decides to return to his retirement, before I'm ready to take the hat, you'll be the top candidate. We could also use your help. You retaking your seat on the Shinobi Council as head of the Senju clan would help even the scales with the civilian council. With the Uchiha clan gone until Sasuke Uchiha makes Jonin, the civilians outnumber the shinobi by 2, meaning we would have to get the elders to vote with us to get anything passed to the Hokage, and Koharu normally sides with the civilians. You don't understand. I can't go back there, Tsunade said, looking away. A loud pop sounded around the room as Naruto's hand connected with her cheek. You think you're the only one who has lost loved ones in the line of duty. My parents were killed fighting the Kyuubi the night I was born. Before the fourth Hokage sealed it in me, my former teammate had his entire clan killed by his own brother, and was forced to relive it over and over in a genjutsu at the age of 8. My former sensei had both members of his genin squad killed during the Third World War. You use your loss as an excuse to run from responsibility and gain pity from others. You dishonor the memory and legacy of your loved ones. Now get your act together, and your big ass in gear, or so help me I will put you over my knee and belt your ass like the child you're being. Naruto yelled loud enough for Yugao and Shizune to hear. Shizune wanted to rush past the young Umbu woman and come to her master's defense, but she knew she'd never get past her, and more importantly, that her master needed to hear this. Tears threatened to spill over Tsunade's eyes as she stared at the ground. Her eyes widened slightly when she felt herself being pulled into the strong arms of her fellow blonde. I know it hurts. It hurts every day, and it never goes away. You think about what could have been if they hadn't died. The years you could have had, the years you lost. I think about it every day. Growing up in a house with my parents, getting trained by them. My mom waiting for me when I got home after the academy, telling them about my missions when I graduated. To have them beside me when Gigi gave me the hat, and to watch them spoil my children. The pain never leaves, but I'll always be here to help you shoulder that pain. If you ever need to talk, or you just need someone to hold you, and tell you it will be all right, just say my name, and I'll come running for you. Naruto said, kissing the top of her head. Tsunade nodded against his chest as she tried to stop her crying. Thank you. We'll pack our bags and meet you downstairs in the morning. Naruto smiled and kissed her cheek. Just remember, if you try and run I will hunt you down, he said, tickling her rib. The older woman giggled slightly and pulled away. Don't worry, I'll be waiting for you in the lobby in the morning. I'll even leave the chakra seal on as a show of faith, she said, opening the door, smiling at Yugao. He's gonna be a heartbreaker in a couple of years. If you're not careful, I may snatch him up. Yugao's face went pink as she looked away. He's not actually my boyfriend. That was just our cover, she said, waving her hands in front of her. Naruto sniffled, giving his best wounded puppy face. Why, Yugao-chan? I thought you liked me, he said, as a tear formed in his eye. The three women's hearts broke as they stared into the blonde's big, beautiful blue eyes. Shizune and Tsunade turned, sending death glares at their Umbu companion, though the woman didn't seem to notice, as she had already moved in a burst of speed to comfort her young genin. Oh, Naruto-kun, of course I like you. I didn't mean to make you sad. But remember, we can't go on a date until you pass the Chunin exams, Yugao said, pressing the boy's head into her cleavage. 2 weeks had passed since Naruto had found Tsunade. Since Hiruzen had approved a long-term mission, the team decided to stay just over a week at the nearby hot springs. None of the females had complained, due to the fact that Naruto had offered to pay for their rooms with some of the money he had won at the casino. Tsunade and Yugao had done a fair share of teasing by entering the mixed baths 10 minutes after he entered every night. Now Naruto stood in front of one of the condemned apartment buildings of the red light district. After returning to the village, he had spoken with Hiruzen about investing some of his money into buying one of the condemned buildings in his neighborhood. Now, with an army of clones, he was nearly finished bringing the building up to code. The working girls in the area were excited about having some upgraded housing. So, Naruto-kun, how are the renovations going? A raven-haired woman wearing a sheer tank top and a pair of short shorts asked. It's growing great, Kagome-chan. I even made sure to reserve your 2-bedroom on the top floor just like you asked. He smiled, hugging the older woman. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I know it will be a pain to carry the groceries up, but I just love the view the 3rd floor gives, she said with a smile. Oh, you don't have to worry about that, Kagome-chan. I had my clones build elevators on each end of the walkways. This way you can take the lift up and not have to worry about the stairs, especially when it rains. Ah, you're the sweetest, Naruto-kun, the woman said, leaning down giving him a kiss on the cheek. Well, I had some of the best women in the world looking out for me as a child, he said, giving the woman a hug. Now, since you seem to be free, why don't you let me treat you to some ramen while my clones finish up here? They just need to finish painting and cleaning up, so by the time we get back, we'll be ready to see your apartment. He smiled, holding out his hand. You sure it's good for your shinobi reputation to be seen walking around with a hooker? Kagome asked, gesturing to her style of dress. First of all, I can't see how having a beautiful woman on my arm could be anything but good for my reputation, and second, if anyone has a problem with it, they can suck my blonde nuts, Naruto said, before he felt a hand smack the back of his head. Language, Naruto-kun, you may be a big bad shinobi now, but you're never too old to go over my knee, the 21-year-old woman said, looking down at him. Yes, Kagome-chan, I'm sorry, he said, giving her a hug, his face nestling in her neck just above her D-cup breast. Kagome-chan, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you since our genin days, I said, as the two entered the small ramen stand. Naruto looked between the two women. Wait, you two were kunoichi? Naruto asked. Yeah, Kagome-chan was held back a couple of times, and then was in the reserves until my team graduated and needed a third. After our first Chunin exams, we decided the shinobi life wasn't for us. Kagome went to work in the red light district, and I went to work full-time at the ramen stand. Naruto's eyes widened slightly. That's why you had those days you weren't around when I was a kid. You were on missions with your genin squad. Yup, we're technically still genin, but in the reserves. That means we'll only be called back to active duty in the event of a war, as a step before the draft, or in the case of an invasion to help guide the civilians to the bunkers. I hope the two of you have been keeping up with your training in case that day comes, Naruto said. Kagome sighed, shaking her head. Unfortunately, I don't have time. I can make my own schedule, but my time is split between work, light workouts to keep myself in shape, and sleep. Same here, though I have Sundays off, since Dad closes the shop that day to go get supplies from our vendors. Since I know the basics of chakra, he orders from a retired shinobi-owned vendor who gives him the supplies and storage scrolls, so he only has to carry a single backpack, and the ingredients stay fresh longer. I added. I've got an idea then. Kagome, on Sunday nights I'll rent out your entire night. I know from my childhood Sunday nights are your slowest nights anyway, so the three of us will train together then. Sundays are when Yugao-sensei said I'd have the day off on Sundays anyway, because that's when Kurinai, Anko, Hana, and her get together for their girls' day when they're not on missions. You guys don't have to go as hard as I do, but I'd like you to keep the rust off. When I talked to Gigi and Elder Danzo, they seemed off. I don't know Danzo, but Gigi seemed like something was bothering him. I just want you two to stay safe, Naruto said, hugging the both of them. We know, Naruto-kun. We'll do some light sparring with you on Sundays in the afternoon. We're not looking to go back to active duty, but we'll be ready if something happens, Kagome said, rubbing his back. I nodded, kissing his forehead. She's right, Naruto-kun, we're not going anywhere. After a week of in-village training and D-rank missions, Naruto and Yugao stood in front of Hiruzen once again. It's good to see you, Naruto-kun. I take it you're here about that C-rank Danzo request. That's right, Gigi, Naruto said with a smile. All right, Naruto-kun, however I did talk to Danzo, and we decided with the size of the camp you'd need some backup. Guy's team has been around for a year, and they've only done one mission involving a killing. I'd like them to accompany you. Your senseis will stay back, and only interfere if they believe you are in imminent danger, Hiruzen said, as Team Guy entered the room. Guy, you're here. I was just explaining to Naruto-kun that your team would be joining him on the bandit camp clearing mission. Now, since the senseis will be backup on this mission, I want a field commander for the genin, which is why I'd like Naruto-kun to take on that role. You can assign leadership roles to your team on your solo missions. However, Naruto-kun is an apprentice, and Yugao wants to enter him in the Chunin exams, so I'd like him to get some experience leading a team. The Hyuga of the team seemed to scowl at the thought of a clanless rookie giving him orders, but wisely kept his mouth shut. That sounds fine, Hokage-sama. Naruto-kun, we can leave in the morning. I'd like to get with you later to inform you of my team's strengths, so we can formulate a battle plan, Guy said with his trademark smile. That would be wonderful, Guy-sensei. I think it would be best if your team joined me and Yugao-sensei for dinner at my place tonight. We can go over sales and use the intel we have to develop a plan together. I don't have experience leading a team, so I'd like to take advantage of input from both of you while I have the chance. That is a wise decision, Naruto-kun. You should always take advice from experienced comrades when you're unsure of something, Hiruzen said, smiling slightly. The following morning, the two teams took off to Northern Fire Country. Naruto had sent a small contingent of clones ahead of the teams for recon. Neji was placed in the center of the formation and ordered to use his Byakugan in 5-minute intervals, every hour until they arrived at the affected town. Then he'd use it for an hour to ensure the bandits were not inbound while the team was busy staging. How many are we looking at, Neji? Naruto asked, as they sat in a bar within the affected town. 45, just like your intel said. The majority are regular bandits, however I sense 2 above-average chakra signatures. My guess is high Genin to low Chunin level. He replied. All right then, the plan stands. I'll use the water shockwave to flood the area and take out as many as we can. The shinobi level signatures will likely know water walking, so once the cannon fodder is taken care of, we'll move in. Everyone stick to your assigned partners. Guy-sensei, when this is over, I would suggest some joint training with myself and Yugao-sensei. Your team is skilled, however they're too specialized. I understand Lee's situation, and Neji being a Hyuga. However, Tenten has the ability to round herself out a little more. If she were to come up against a wind user, say Asuna Shinobi during the Chunin exams, all of her weapons would be easily blown away. I believe you're right, Naruto-kun. Yugao and I will get together after the mission and come up with a once-a-week joint training program, Guy said. The bandits' camp was located within a small ravine, making them an easy target for Naruto's jutsu. Water-style, water shockwave, Naruto said, as water swirled around him in a large geyser shape. In the ravine below, the bandits guarding the camp looked up at the edge of the ravine, staring in disbelief at the vortex in front of them. What the hell is that? One screamed, before the vortex turned into a large wave that collided with the camp, washing away the majority of the camp. When the water cleared, many laid dead from the impact, while some struggled to wade in the 4 feet of water, while 2 men stood on top of the water. It seems those villagers managed to sneak out a message and hire some shinobi Jovari, a black-haired man with a scar running from his left eye down to his chest. It would appear so, Versace, a blond man with a mask over his face replied. The 4 genin appeared in front of them, standing on the water. Jovari laughed at the sight of the 4 teens. Really, all they could afford was a few brats. Careful, Jovari. One of them just used a B-rank ninjutsu to change the entire battlefield to their advantage. Their Jonin senseis are probably nearby, and used the jutsu to give them a fighting chance, since we had the numbers advantage. Jovari scoffed. Naruto decided he was tired of their talking, and threw an explosive tag between the two, forcing them to separate. Lee and Naruto took on Jovari while Tenten and Neji Versace. So Jovari, I haven't read your name in the bingo book. I'm Jovari Tenmachi, C-rank missing ninja of IWA, which means putting leaf scum like yourself in your place will be icing on top of paying you back for my men. Lee, you've got the speed advantage and we don't know what range this guy fights at, so I'll take him and you watch my back, Naruto said, unsealing his Kubikiri Hocho from his arm. Jovari's eyes widened as he stared at the sword. Where did you get that sword, boy? He said, narrowing his eyes. I am the legacy of the late Zabuza Momochi. Before I killed him, he made me promise to carry on the legacy of the Demon of the Mist, Naruto said, as he held up a hand and deactivated his weight seals. Now I'm going to thank you before we start. The man raised an eyebrow, looking at the young Uzumaki. What the hell would you thank me for, kid? I'm about to kill you, unless you want to die. No, nothing like that. I'm simply thanking you, because when you die it will add to my infamy, if only by a small margin. Naruto smirked, holding his hand up, as a thick mist began to roll in. So you think using the famous hidden mist jutsu will scare me? You're not even half as skilled as Zabuza in the silent kill. Javari taunted, hoping to get Naruto to respond. Shows what you know, you're a dead man already, came the voice of the blonde from his left. Got you, Earth style, rock gun, she shouted, as he shot thick chunks of rock from his mouth towards the noise, only to stop last minute and jump as he felt the large blade come down on his shoulder. Javari screamed in pain as he clutched the thin strings of flesh and muscle that held his hanging arm to his torso. You fucking brat. It's funny how easy it is to disable the average shinobi. You see, shinobi just focus on flashy jutsu that will make them famous. They never think what happens if one of my arms is disabled, and I can't use two-handed hand signs, meaning they become easy prey if you can take their arm out. Stop hiding and fight me, you fucking coward, the man yelled, swinging his kunai. Why would I? You're already dead, the voices around him said, as Naruto's blade came down on his neck. Lifting the mist, Naruto sealed the head and turned to Lee. Lee, I'll let you take care of the stragglers. I'm gonna hang back near Tenten and Niji in case they need backup. Lee nodded and moved to take out the remaining bandits, while Naruto paid close attention to Tenten and Niji's fighting styles. He knew it was highly likely that Guy would enter his team in the exams this year, which meant there was a possibility that he'd have to fight one, or all of them at some point, and seeing as it didn't look like they would be needing his help, he might as well take this opportunity to watch them in action. After the battle, Tenten looked around, and for the first time, took notice of the sword on Naruto's back. Naruto, where did you get Kubikiri Hocho? From Zabuza himself. I killed him during Team 7's mission in Waves. He asked me to do it, and take the sword to carry on the legacy of the Demon of the Mist. Naruto explained. Can I hold it? She asked, giving him her best puppy dog eyes jutsu. Well, I'm not sure if you can. Zabuza said I'd be the only one to be able to hold it, so I don't know if I'm able to give you permission to hold it. Tenten looked up at him with pleading eyes, hoping to get him to try. Please, Naruto-kun, I'd be ever so grateful. Naruto looked back at Yugao for help. Don't look at me, Naruto-kun, as the last Uzumaki, and the owner of one of the 7 swords of the mist. You'll be put in the CRA, not to mention the Uzumaki have a long history of polygamy, which means you're on your own. She smirked. Fine, when we get back to the village, we'll go to the training ground and see if it works. If it doesn't, I know a man named Raiga has the Kiba blades, so I'll take you with me when I go to kill him, and you can take the Kiba blades, but we will be working out an equal trade. The team made it back in record time, with Tenten pushing her Genin squadmates to their limit to get back. Lee, are you sure you're the only one training with weights? That felt much too fast for Tenten, Niji said. Niji ignored her team and dragged her blonde companion to the nearest training ground. All right, Naruto-kun, what kind of deal would it take for you to let me touch Kubikorocho and help me get my hands on the Kiba blades? Well, I need to get more used to the female body so I don't fall for seduction techniques. How about you let me touch your butt, and I'll let you hold it for the same amount of time. Tenten thought about it for a moment. She knew that once she made Chunin, she'd likely have to take her own seduction missions anyway, and allowing Naruto to touch her would make her more comfortable with the idea of a man touching her. How about this? Kunoichi take on the majority of seduction missions, meaning when I make Chunin, I'll likely have to take on some of those missions as well, which means I'll need to gain experience too. If you let me hold the sword for 5 minutes and help me get the Kiba blades, we'll be each other's training partners and sex partners. This way the two of us can get used to it. You'll learn to resist seduction techniques while learning how to pleasure a woman, and I'll learn how to seduce and pleasure a man. Do we have a deal? Naruto thought about it for a moment before nodding. That sounds good. The girls in the red light district gave me the basics, so I won't be going in blind, but I could use the hands-on experience. Tenten raised an eyebrow, looking at him with suspicion. Why have you been hanging out in the red light district? I've lived there since I was 4. Gigi gave me the apartment when the orphanage kicked me out. If your Gigi had the money for a second apartment, why didn't he just adopt you? Tenten asked. Gigi is what I call the Hokage, since he's acted like my grandfather since I was a kid, Naruto explained. The civilian council made a law saying no one could adopt me. Apparently having the village Jinchuriki in any one family would tip the scales of power too much. I was also abused a lot as a child, so Gigi decided to put me somewhere where people didn't care about your past. My money was as green as everyone else's, and now that I'm investing it back into the area, they like me even more. The girls there have watched out for me since I was little, and trust me, no one wants to tick off a prostitute. One of them blackballs you, the rest will never speak to you again. They sound like honest, hard-working people, Tenten said, as she tried to lift the massive sword. This thing weighs a fucking ton. How do you even carry it? Naruto chuckled, watching his bun-haired comrade struggle with the massive weapon. There's a training version sealed in it. It starts out light and gets heavier as you adjust to it. By the time it turns blue, you can swing the sword pretty well. Right now, I'm working on gold. How do you do that? My muscles would be sore for days after that. The QB gives me a healing factor. Things like sore muscles are gone in a few hours. The healing also makes my muscles grow faster. It's one of the reasons why Jinchuriki are thought of as perfect weapons. We can be trained into the ground and be fine by the next morning, Naruto said, a little sadly at the end. Tenten placed the sword on the ground and walked over, stroking the blonde's cheek. Naruto-kun, you are not a weapon. You are a brave shinobi who is doing his best to protect the people he loves. I admire your spirit and your drive. You've gone through so much at the hands of the village, and yet you still fight every day to protect it, she said, kissing his cheek before pulling him into a hug. Naruto hugged her back before the two decided to head back to his apartment for some second base groping and making out. Afterwards, they spent the night eating ramen and talking about their plans for the future. Naruto still wanted the hat, but he was now more focused on becoming the strongest shinobi in the village. While Tenten was hoping to convince Tsunade to give her some lessons on medical ninjutsu. Well, let's go see her. She does still owe me a favor. Before Tenten could question him, Naruto was dragging her along to the Senju compound. Hey Tsunade-chan, open up in there, Naruto yelled, banging on the door. The door swung open, and a fist shot out, slamming into Naruto's head. What are you doing here, brat? And who said you could call me Tsunade-chan? Naruto popped up from the small crater in the ground, rubbing his head. Fine. Tsunadeheim, I'm here to collect that favor you owe me. What are you talking about? You used that favor to get me back here, she scoffed, turning her head so he couldn't see the light blush on her face. Technically, that was an order from the Hokage for you to return. I never said it was the favor. Tsunade huffed slightly. Fine, what's the favor? Want to cop another feel or something? She said, causing Tenten to look at Naruto in surprise. No, nothing like that, though I wouldn't mind taking you on a small trip back to that casino when I take some vacation days before the Chunin exams. He smiled, kissing her hand. The truth is, my friend here is a big fan of yours, and has always wanted to study under you. Her sensei is Might Guy, and as I'm sure you know, he focuses almost purely on taijutsu, which is fine for his student Lee, who can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu, as well as his other student who is a Hyuga, but it leaves Tenten with a limited skill set and wastes a lot of her potential. Fine, I'll teach her some medical ninjutsu on her team's days off, but after this we're even. If you want me to do anything, you're going to take me out to a proper dinner and butter me up like a real gentleman, Tsunade said, crossing her arms. That's fine, Tsunadeheim. I'd take you out to dinner just to get an excuse to sit across from your beautiful smile, Naruto replied with his trademark million gigawatt grin. Baka, stop trying to be cute, she said, looking away. Tsunade-sama, I have a question. Why do you act like a teenager sometimes? Tenten asked, looking up at the taller woman. My grandmother was Mito Uzumaki. Like Naruto-kun, I have Uzumaki blood in me. Though I know we're from different branches because Mitoba-chan was an only child. Uzumakis are blessed with large chakra reserves, and by extension long lifespans. This causes the Uzumaki to have childlike mentalities longer. For example, chronologically I'm 50, but physically and mentally I'm only about 19. The truth is I don't actually use my advanced henge for anything except ducking creditors. Tsunade explained. So that means Naruto-kun is? Tenten asked. Mentally 13. The Uzumaki blood keeps us in our prime longer. For me, my prime was 19 during the Second Shinobi World War. Naruto-kun still hasn't reached his prime yet, so he's still growing mentally. She smiled, rubbing his head. Deciding he had enough teasing, Naruto leaned in and whispered in the taller blonde's ear. I may still be growing, but I'm big for my age. After a healthy amount of teasing, Naruto left Tsunade and Tenten to get acquainted while he went home for a well-deserved shower. That night in the dark underground of Konoha, a bun-haired girl met with a one-eyed elder. Well, Tenten, how is he doing? He's progressing well, Danzo-sama. He wants to make the village strong, and even burned a favor from a Sannin to get me training from Tsunade Senju. He still shows signs of that depression your root agents reported in his younger years. However, it seems to be fading now that he's making more ties in the village. I believe if he is promoted during the Chunin exams and placed in the CRA, it will fully disappear once he's planted his own roots in the village. Currently, he's renovating one of the apartments in the red light district. I believe the more he invests in the area, the stronger his ties will become. He also seems to have a high affinity for the local prostitutes. Apparently, they played a hand in raising him. Danzo nodded. Yes, I'm aware of his relationship with the women of that area. I planted a root agent in that area as one of the prostitutes when he was younger. She would take extra food and cook books and leave them in his apartment when he was younger. It's one of the reasons he's not a ramen-addicted fool. Is there anything else? Yes, he has agreed to help me track down Raiga and retrieve the Kiba blades for my own use. Meaning if he can track down Kisame, Konoha will have 3 of the 7 swords of the mist in our possession. I hope he doesn't find Kisame until after the Chunin exams. If he does, we can have Kisame placed under his political protection as a vassal of the Uzumaki clan. If you obtain the Raiga, will you be interested in marrying into the Uzumaki clan to consolidate the 3 blades? I admit I am growing more fond of him. I know you only told me to be friendly if I ever wound up on a mission with him, so he'd think of me as a friend, but if things continue on the track they're on, I could possibly see myself as one of his romantic partners. Tenten admitted. That will be all, Tenten. Return back next week for another update. Danzo said, dismissing his agent. Hi, Danzo-sama, Tenten said before leaving. Danzo chuckled to himself as he looked at a black and white oil painting of the village from just after Hiruzen's coronation. The future flame of the leaf, marrying its future shadow. Naruto-kun, you never cease to amaze me. I'll apologize to lying to you later, but there are so few of us wind users in our village. Even my own heir is a earth user, he said, leaning back in his chair. In the month following Naruto's mission with Team Guy, he and Yugao had gotten into a routine of doing training and D ranks 1 week and a short-term C rank the following week. The regime gave Naruto the ability to train on a subject 1 week and put it into practical application the following week. He'd also gotten himself into the habit of leaving his clones to study at his apartment while he was out of the village. Now the 2-person team stood in front of their Hokage, and a young brown-haired girl in a blue shoulderless belly shirt, shinobi pants, and a blue apron skirt. Her Konoha plate was wrapped around her waist as a belt, and her blue eyes staring at Naruto. Yugao, Naruto-kun, you're here. I'd like you to meet Eri. She was a year ahead of you at the academy. We had uneven teams last year, so she was forced to stay as a reservist for a year. She's been doing D ranks for the hospital and the academy for the past year. I was hoping that since you and Yugao are a two-person cell, you'd be willing to accept her as the third member of your team. Since you're filed as an apprentice, it is up to the both of you to decide whether or not you want to accept her. Hiruzen explained. Eri stepped forward and looked at the two. Naruto, Yugao-sensei, I've been waiting a year for the opportunity to join a team. It is very rare that a reservist is given this opportunity. Most are forced to wait until 3 uneven classes graduate, or a team loses a member, either through one member dying, being promoted, or dropping from the program. If you accept me, I'll work as hard as possible to contribute to the team. Naruto walked forward, staring into her eyes. He'd always been able to tell when people were lying. He didn't know if it was his naturally good senses or something to do with the QB, but he was thankful for it either way. Turning to his sensei, he smiled. I like this one sensei. She's got kind eyes, and her hands say she's a hard worker. Well, there you have it. Welcome to the team. Yugao smiled. Eri's eyes lit up before she tackled Naruto, hugging him. Thank you, thank you, thank you, she cried out, hugging him. Naruto stood up, patting her on the head. Gigi, why is it when I talk to women, I'm always the one who winds up being attacked? Yugao giggled, ruffling her student's hair. That's because you're so cute, Naruto-kun. The ladies can't keep their hands off of you. Naruto crossed his arms, giving his sensei a slight pout. Let's just go to the training grounds. Now that we've got a new member, we need to go over new group formations. Yugao sighed, rubbing her forehead. Always with the training with this one, even on his days off. You're kidding, Eri asked skeptically, as most rookie genin only did the bare minimum. Nope, every day he's doing some kind of training, though that stamina will come in handy later on. Yugao teased. I can't hear you. I'm already headed to the training ground, Naruto said, jumping out of the window. Yugao giggled, looking at Eri. We should go, before he destroys the training ground again. Again? Eri asked. It's better if you see what he's doing, Yugao said, escorting the young girl to her team's normal training ground. When they arrived, Eri was shocked to see several groups of Naruto's training on different subjects. What is he doing? He's using shadow clones to train in katas, ninjutsu, and chakra control. If I leave him alone, he normally has them work on mastering skills he's already learned. Eri stared in amazement. I wish I could learn the shadow clone. That would make training so much easier. It takes a large amount of chakra and puts a heavy mental strain on the user. If you can get your chakra levels up to Jonin, we'll talk about you learning it, Yugao said. Now I take it you know the tree walking technique? Yes, and water walking. Good, for today we'll have you do water running to increase your chakra reserves. If you do well with it by our first break, I'll have you balance a kunai on your head while you do it, then tomorrow we'll work on your ninjutsu. Since Naruto-kun has already set his clones up while he does his physical exercises, I'll focus on you for the day, Yugao said with a smile. The team decided to take a break for lunch around noon, at which point Yugao decided to raise a question. Naruto-kun, what level of Fuinjutsu have you gotten to? Naruto looked up from his bento and swallowed the mouthful he had been chewing. Around level 6, meaning I can currently make elemental seals and gravity seals. Why? I was hoping you could get Eri-chan started with some low-level gravity seals after lunch. This way we can work on her speed, so we don't have to slow down as much during C-rank missions, Yugao suggested. Sure, I can apply them after lunch, he said before looking at Eri. You can keep your breast covered, but I am going to need you to remove your shirt though. Eri looked at him in curiosity, wanting to reserve judgment until after he had explained. Okay, but why? I'll need to put a seal on your stomach, as well as the ones on your arms and legs. This will evenly distribute the weight instead of concentrating it in your legs. It's one of the reasons I don't like Lee's training method. His weights are heavy, but having all of the weight concentrated in the legs will cause him joint problems later on in life, because he's putting hundreds of pounds of pressure on his joints with every step he takes. If he were to use my method instead, he'd be able to use the same amount of weight, while at the same time distributing the load amongst all of his joints rather than just the ones in his legs. Which reminds me, you can keep your underwear on and skirt on for modesty, but your leggings will need to come off, since your thighs will provide a much larger surface than your ankles to work with. I'm still not proficient enough in sealing to use things like micro-seals. Naruto explained. I'll take it if you think it will make me stronger. Just make sure you keep your hands away from the fun parts. 3 dates minimum before you get to touch those with the clothes on, Eri said, crossing her arms. Dang Eri, you're pretty forward. Already thinking about a 3rd date. Yugao giggled. Eri blushed, waving her hands. That's not what I meant. I mean, yeah, he's cute, but… Wait, I mean… She sputtered out. Naruto smiled, kissing his new teammate's cheek. Don't worry, Eri-chan. I think you're cute too. Alright ladies man, hurry up with the seal so we can get back to training, Yugao said, gently smacking the back of his head. Naruto nodded and waited for Eri to strip before he began applying the seals to her body. Wow Eri-chan, your skin is so soft and clear. You make the perfect canvas, he complimented absent-mindedly. The compliment caused his comrade's cheeks to turn bright red. Thank you Naruto-kun. No one really notices how much I try to take care of myself. I've been told I've got a very plain look to me. Naruto finished applying the seals and grabbed her by the chin. Listen here Eri-chan, you are a beautiful young lady, and if anyone says otherwise, well they can come talk to me, and I'll shove my foot so far up their ass, the water on my knee will quench their thirst, he said, kissing her cheek. Eri giggled, kissing his cheek. Thank you Naruto-kun. You're like a giant ball of sunshine that just brightens up everyone's day. Alright you two, you can suck face after training if you have the energy, Yugao said, interrupting the moment. Naruto smiled and kissed Yugao's cheek. Yes Yugao-chan, he said before showing Eri how to activate the seals. Hey Naruto-kun, why do you call Yugao-sensei Yugao-chan? Eri asked, activating the seals, which caused her to drop to one knee. Yeah, I should have warned you about that. By the looks of your arm seals, you pumped in enough chakra for an extra 150 pounds total, Naruto explained. As for why I call her Yugao-chan, she told me to only call her Yugao-sensei when we're in front of others outside of our team. This way, if we're on an undercover mission like when we went to get Tsunade-chan, we didn't want to spook her and run the risk of her taking off on it, so I was given permission to call her Yugao-chan. That's right Eri, and I want you to do the same. During team meetings and on missions that don't involve escorting or guarding a client. I want you to refer to me by name, Yugao instructed. Now try and walk. I want you to do as many laps around the training ground as you can until you can't walk. Yes Yugao-chan. Eri smiled, before taking labored steps around the training area. Seems you've got another admirer Yugao-chan. Should I be jealous? Naruto chuckled and stretched. Oh shush. You act like you haven't been flirting with every kunoichi we've met since we teamed up, Yuga teased back. I don't know what you're talking about Yugao-chan. I only hold conversations. It's not my fault if my words are smoother than cream cheese on your morning bagel. He smirked, giving her ass a slap, before running off to continue his training. I'm gonna get him back for that when he passes the Chunin exams, she said to herself, as she thought of the dress she'd had her eye on for the past few weeks. After an exhausting day of training, Naruto was determined to make his way home and take a long hot shower. His plans were brought to a grinding halt when he walked into his apartment to find Tenten wearing a lacy black bra with red ribbon straps and matching panties. Welcome home, Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes roamed over Tenten's athletic form, from her angelic face, down her high B-cup breast, her toned stomach, and over her wide, powerful hips. You look beautiful, Tenchan, but what are you doing? Tenten smirked, walking towards him, with an exaggerated sway in her hips. Why, I'm seducing you, of course, she said, walking up to him. Slight lemon. Tenten grabbed the blonde man by the arm and pushed him onto the couch. You look so tired, Naruto-kun. I think you need to sit back, relax, and let me make you feel better, she said, spreading his legs apart. I mean, I did have a long day at training today, Yugao-chan, and I got a new teammate from the reserves today, so we had to add team exercises to our training routine. My poor Naruto, just sit back and let your sweet Tenchan make you feel better. She smiled, pulling his zipper down with her teeth. With one swift movement, the young kunoichi stripped her partner of his pants and boxers, allowing all 9.5 inches of his erect member to lurch forward from its confines. Wow, Naruto, you must really like my outfit, she giggled, giving his head an experimental lick. Naruto let out a slight moan, looking down at his lover's chocolate brown eyes. Tenchan, you'd look beautiful in a potato sack, he said, running his fingers through her hair, which was now pooled around her shoulders. The young kunoichi's cheeks turned bright red as she slowly stroked the thick member in front of her. I'm supposed to be doing the seducing here, sweet talker, she said, before taking him into her mouth, moving it back and forth across the first 5 inches of his cock. I think you're doing an amazing job, he said through several moans, one hand clawing the sofa as the other moved to Tenten's resting shoulder, lowering the strap of her bra. Tenten smiled and aided him by removing her straps and unhooking her bra. Her mouth never left his cock as the article of clothing fell to the floor in front of her, her light brown nipples standing perfectly erect in the cool air. The blonde genin stared in awe of his beautiful partner as his hand made its way down to her right breast, giving it a light squeeze. The young brunette let out a moan against the cock in her mouth, her partner's fingers finding their way to her nipple. Naruto-kun, if you keep that up you might have to finish what you start, she purred, licking his tip. Naruto responded by hoisting her onto his shoulder and walking to the bedroom, where he pulled her panties down and laid her on top of him with her womanhood in his face. His lips immediately latched onto her clit, creating a vacuum that pulled blood into the small bundle of nerves stretching them out as his tongue narrowed and flicked over it. Tenten let out a small cry of pleasure before she quickly wrapped her lips back around his cock. Her head began moving faster, taking more of his length into her mouth with each stroke. Naruto's own mouth was busy making circles around her clit as his fingers traveled back to her breast, rolling and pulling lightly on her nipple. The action elected more moans from the brunette, which in turn increased the vibrations around his cock. Tenten's eyes closed as she lowered her mouth to the base of her partner's cock, her tongue sloppily running around the shaft of his member. Tenchan, I'm gonna come, he warned in a muffled voice as he continued to assault her clit with his tongue. Tenten screamed around his cock as she was sent over the edge with pleasure, her juices splashing against Naruto's face. The immense vibration against his already pulsing member caused Naruto to erupt in Tenten's mouth, his seed spraying the back of the young kunoichi's throat. Lemon end. Tenten laid next to her blonde lover, a smile on her face. I know we're just supposed to be practicing with each other, but would you mind if I laid with you for a bit? My legs are kind of weak, and you're a perfect teddy bear. I don't mind, Tenchan. I enjoy spending time with you, so if you're going to give me an excuse to cuddle with you, then I'm not going to say no. He smiled, wrapping an arm around her waist. How has your training with Tsunade-chan been going? It's going well. We've been doing a lot of chakra control exercises and studying a lot of anatomy. She says we can start on actual medical ninjutsu next week, now that I've caught up on advanced anatomy. How's your individual training going? Have you made any progress on the Bloody Mist style? It took a while, but I've managed to make a lot of headway. It relies on a lot of physical strength and leverage. I likely won't be able to utilize it to its full potential until I have another growth spurt. True, but mastering the katas now will give you a big advantage when you are big enough to use it. Also, studies have shown that a person's body type can be altered in puberty based on the activities they took part in during their formative years. Meaning if you're swinging around that sword now, you'll likely gain a more muscular physique in your adult years. She explained, absent-mindedly rubbing his pec. I'm glad I've got such a smart girl helping me out, he responded, kissing her cheek. I know there's a chance we'll have to fight each other in the Chunin exams, but I still want to see you become the strongest kunoichi you can be. I feel the exact same way. I can see the progress you're making every day. I don't need to see the future to know that you're going to be one of the strongest shinobi the world has ever seen, and I want to be standing alongside you when that happens, whether it be as a friend, lover, or partner. I want that too, Tenten. When I'm Hokage, I'd very much like you to be one of the Umbu in my guard, or one of the next generation of Sannin, meaning we're both going to have to train our hardest in order to make those dreams come true. I know Naruto-kun, and I know we can do it. We've got each other, my team, your team, Hokage-sama, and Tsunade-sama. From what I can tell, we also have the support of Old Man Danzo. He's a lot more stern than Gigi, but he seems like he'll do anything to make the village stronger and keep it safe, he replied, pulling her closer, his thumb rubbing her shoulder. Tenten's heart lifted slightly. When Naruto said he considered Danzo an ally, maybe we could ask him for help. He seems to be fond of me. He's given me basic access to his information network for mission intel. That's how you knew where Tsunade-sama was, and how many bandits were at the camp, Tenten guessed. Yes, I wouldn't be telling you this if I didn't trust you. I have a feeling Danzo is a private man, so don't say anything to anyone. He's trusting me with access to a very crucial resource when it comes to Root. I don't want him to feel I can't be trusted. Tenten looked up at him, raising an eyebrow. What makes you think I can be trusted? She asked. It's one of the reasons I took you to Tsunade-chan. I'm basically a human lie detector. If I couldn't trust you, I would have stopped talking to you after the first mission. Not to mention if Tsunade-chan thought I was letting you slide for being beautiful and thought she couldn't trust you. Let's just say, you would have had an extremely bad training accident while learning her super strength technique, he said casually. So romantic to know you'd have your MILF girlfriend have me whacked. Tenten smiled, rolling her eyes. Not whacked, just knocked out, and kept under the Senju compound as my own personal sex slave. Naruto chuckled, tickling her rib. Tenten giggled, pushing on his chest. So what we have now, just without you having to come find me when you're in the mood? Given what happened today, I don't think I really have to come looking. He smirked, poking her underarm. Now let's take a nap. My clones are going to finish their work for the day on the second apartment complex at sundown, so I want to go take a look at it when they're done. That sounds good. Are you going to be moving into one of the units? No, with a couple of more C ranks and rent from my operational building, I'll be able to buy this building. I'm the only tenant here, which is why the landlord could never fix anything when I was growing up. He's getting up there in years and wants to retire to a little retirement village in the land of hot water. He set me up a price that would give him what he needed to do it. So what are you going to do with the other units once you have it? Tenten asked. Well, first I'm going to put in some upgrades to the wiring and appliances in this one. I don't think that fridge has been upgraded since the Second Shinobi War. Given the floor plans for the top floor, I could knock out the kitchen wall and the hall bathroom and turn the place into a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, though I could open up the wall near the bedroom door and add a master bathroom where this apartment's kitchen is, keeping the stove where it is, but adding more prep space to the other kitchen and turning the other living room into a dining room. I was thinking of adding indoor stairs to the living room area and turning the downstairs area into a study. There's a wooded area right behind here. I'm hoping to buy it soon and turn it into a part of the compound here in the red light district. You seem to have a very business-oriented mindset, Naruto. Why is that? She asked, looking up at him. I learned early on in life that there are 3 measures of influence: knowledge, money, and raw power. With the second, you can get the other 2 easily through books and hired muscle. I see money as a tool. I can use it to recreate the Uzumaki clan here in the village. I read about it recently in a book. If I'm really descended from them like Tsunade-chan said, then I want to bring my family's strength to the leaf. I use my money to improve lives in the village and bring more prosperity to our village. I'm thinking of investing in property in Suna as well. Why Suna? She asked curiously. Suna is currently our only ally among the Great Five. They're also the poorest. Being in the desert, they don't have much in the way of natural food supplies, and given the performance of their shinobi in recent years, due to lack of funding for better equipment and training, they've lost a lot of business when it comes to missions. I was thinking if I could learn how to seal my shadow clones in a master scroll and have them work the land, unsealing a new batch of clones when the first is getting ready to dispel. They'd keep an aquifer going to feed grazing land for cattle and food. I'd sell the food in the village and hire the villagers to work the land. The clones would stay there as foramen and as the chakra supply for the water. It would strengthen the bonds between our villages. Making our ally stronger will also make us stronger. What's your plan for buying it? Tenten asked. The Chunin exams are in about 2 more months. In about 2 more weeks I'll buy this building. After that Gigi will send my team to Suna. Right now there's a backlog of D-rank missions because a lot of the genin teams are ramping up their training to prepare for the exams. I've been having a group of shadow clones take on D-ranks during my training. They should have enough D-ranks for a large plot of land by the time we leave. If Danzo's root agents are skilled, maybe he knows a more sustainable clone jutsu than the shadow clone. If you tell him your plan for Suna, he might be willing to point you in the right direction. That's a good idea, Tenchan. I'll try to find him tomorrow, he said, kissing her forehead. The following morning, Naruto arrived at the Hokage Tower early in the morning, well before his team was meant to meet. Naruto-kun, what brings you to my office this early in the morning? Hiruzen asked, taking a puff of his pipe, while Danzo, who was also in the room for the morning chess match he'd enjoyed with his teammate for the past several decades, turned to greet the young boy. Good morning, Naruto-kun. It's a pleasure to see you again. Naruto gave a slight smile. It's good to see the both of you. Actually, Gigi, I came to ask you where I could find Danzo here, but it seems you two have saved me the trouble of tracking him down. Oh, and what would you want with a retired shinobi like me? Danzo asked curiously. Tenten wasn't due to report in until tonight, which meant he was in the dark about the boy's intentions. Well, really, if either of you can help me, it would be great. I was hoping to buy some land in Suna and use my ninjutsu abilities to turn it into a profitable farm. It would strengthen Suna, as well as our alliance with them. I'd also be able to leave a clone there who could spawn other clones and feed information back to me. Early warning system in case Suna is invaded, and my own surveillance system within Suna's walls, in case there are any shinobi who are unhappy with our current alliance and would do us harm. Danzo couldn't help the inwardly proud smile that only years of training had managed to physically keep off his face. The boy was already thinking like a proper shinobi, using his legitimate business as a means to place agents inside another village's walls. There is a jutsu that is perfect for what you want. It's called the blood clone. It creates a clone with its own chakra pool, much like the shadow clone. The difference being that the blood clone produces its own chakra at 1/4 the rate of the original. You should know though, the jutsu requires 5% of the user's blood. It's a jutsu that is mainly used for creating commander clones. The clones can only be destroyed with a lethal blow. Normally 2 or 3 of them are made by a person over the course of several days. The clones are normally split between platoons. They create and dispel shadow clones in order to relay information across a battlefield. Go to your usual training ground. I'll have one of my agents drop off the scroll on it in a bit. Maybe Fu Yamanaka. She seems to have grown rather fond of you. Fu is a Yamanaka? I thought Yamanakas were blonde. Naruto asked. And I thought Uzumakis had red hair. Danzo quipped. Touché, he replied. Well, thank you for your help. My apologies for interrupting your game. I will see you both later, he said, leaving. That boy is extremely ambitious, Hiruzen. A rookie genin, and he's already planting surveillance in other countries. I've also heard tell he's bought up a couple of the apartment complexes in the red light district, with plans to buy the building he's currently living in. That is true. He's been abusing his shadow clones to help us work through our backlog of D-rank missions. His mission record is almost unheard of for a non-wartime genin. If the judges are biased against him during the exams, his record would easily earn him a field promotion. Don't worry, Hiruzen. If he makes it to the finals, he's almost guaranteed a promotion. I personally screened this year's judges to ensure unbiased votes. If he earns his promotion, he'll get it. Thank you, Danzo. That boy is overdue for a fair shake in life. The life of a Jinchuriki is never easy, Hiruzen. All we can do is give him our support and help him grow into the protector this village needs. Not that there are many who deserve it. Hiruzen nodded, taking a drag of his pipe, while moving a pawn up a space. That's true, Danzo, but with the use of his shadow clones for missions. Naruto-kun is slowly showing the people of the village how amazing he truly is. I believe by the time the Chunin exam finals roll around, he'll have several people cheering him on in the stands. I have a feeling you're right. Meanwhile, Naruto had made his way to the training field. Several sets of clones going over katas, balancing kunai down his spine while water running, the vacuum bullet, and sensing each other while in the thickest mist they could create. The original was currently meditating. He had come up with an idea for pulsing out his chakra in a circle around him to detect objects, but was having some trouble fine-tuning it. Currently, he could make out the shapes of people and objects, but they came out blurry. They were more like vague shapes than anything distinguishable. The idea suddenly struck him. He had been using the technique in an unrefined pulse. What he needed was a flat, clean edge. Something that, instead of draping over the object like a wet cloth, would scan a person like a hospital machine. Focusing on a thin blade of chakra that glided along the top of the grass and up the nearby trees. He could easily make out the form of a familiar person sitting in the trees. Fuchan, I know you're in the tree to my 7:30. You can come out now. The orange-haired woman dropped down from the tree-long copper-colored hair tight back in a ponytail, D-cup breast covered by a black top that exposed her midriff, and her shapely hips clad in a pair of black shinobi pants, with a tanto strapped over her right shoulder. I'm impressed, Naruto-kun. There aren't many people in the village who can detect me, including our sensors and Hyuga. Thanks, Fuchan, I call it my chakra radar. You actually just helped me perfect it. He smiled, greeting the young root agent with a hug, which she hesitantly returned. Well, I'd appreciate it if you could teach it to me sometime. It would be a great help on my out-of-village missions. Speaking of, here is the scroll Danzo-sama said you requested, she said, handing him the scroll. Thank you, Fuchan. I still have a few hours before my team meets. If you'd like, I can teach you the basics of the chakra radar. I'd very much like that, Naruto-kun. Danzo-sama would be extremely grateful if we could add the technique to Root's list of skills. Of course, but it's best suited for someone with both high chakra control and high chakra reserves. The goal is to create an extremely flat circle of chakra around your feet and pulse it outwards in all directions. I found it helps if you picture it like those laser scan machines at the hospital. Fu nodded at the explanation. All right, Naruto-kun, I'll give it a try, and for future reference, those are called MRI machines. She smiled before taking a meditative stance. Deciding to start small, she focused a C-rank amount of chakra into the technique and pulsed it out, getting about 30 feet in every direction. That's amazing, Naruto-kun. It was like I could see you, and your clones even with my eyes closed. Yes, but to go beyond 100 feet takes at least a high B-rank jutsu's worth of chakra. I've studied the last several Chunin exams. There's always a portion that involves a long-term survival test, where the teams try to eliminate each other. The only place here in Konoha that I could think of where that would be plausible would be the Forest of Death. Which is why I want to get it to the point where I can scan at least 2 kilometers in every direction. It'd give me a heads up on the other teams, and whatever animals are lurking around the forest. Fu was impressed by the thought the boy had put into the exams. I've never seen a genin put this much thought into the Chunin exams. Most of them simply go in blind and hope for the best. I promised someone I'd do my best to become the strongest Hokage there is, which means I've got to take every opportunity and study as much knowledge as I can. Speaking of knowledge, Naruto-kun, I heard you've been studying Fuinjutsu. Are you proficient enough to make reinforcement seals for walls? Yes, but the ones I can make are only C rank at best. They'll increase a wall's integrity, but they won't protect against a long-term siege, he admitted. That's better than nothing. Danzo-sama wants to hire you for a C-rank mission to add those seals to the outer wall of Konoha, as well as any other seals you can think that would help. My clones are still studying right now. I can get to it Sunday after my training with Ayam-chan and Kagome-chan. I'll add master seals at key points around the top of the wall that will connect with fire seals along the exterior of the wall. When chakra is pulsed through them, it will transfer to the seals on the wall and shoot fireballs in a volley at the enemy. That will be perfect, Naruto-kun. The longer you can keep them away from the walls, the better. You know something you're not telling me, Fuchan. I can sense when people are lying to me, even when they're as trained as you. I know you can, Naruto-kun, but the information is classified. You'd need to be read in by Hokage-sama or Danzo-sama. I hope you understand. Naruto hugged her, smiling. I understand, Fuchan. You're a faithful kunoichi of the village. I know you would never give up information that could hurt the village. I'll talk to Gigi and Danzo. Would you mind asking them to meet me at Gigi's office today at 5:30 when training is finished? Of course, Naruto-kun. Danzo-sama has put Root at your disposal. I will be your personal liaison with Root. When Danzo-sama has a scroll or a mission request for you, he'll send me to deliver it. You can also call me by pulsing chakra into the seal. I'm rarely out of the village, but on the rare occasion that I am, I'll send another agent in my stead. I look forward to working with you, Fuchan. He smiled. As do I, Naruto-kun, but I do have to get back and report in. Though we should get something to eat when you have the chance. It'd be best if we were seen socially together. It would keep people from being suspicious when I come to deliver something, if it seems like I'm just a friend coming to visit you again. Good idea. I'll meet you outside the Hokage Tower after my meeting, and we'll go to the Akamichi restaurant for dinner. Fu nodded and bid the young blonde goodbye before returning to her master, while said blonde began studying the scroll for the blood clone jutsu. If he could master it before his mission to Suna, he could create one to create shadow clones for studying, and one when he got to Suna to manage his property there. 2 hours later, Yugao and Eri arrived, accompanied by Team 8. I see you two brought company, Naruto said, his eyes still closed and his back to the group. How can you tell, Naruto-kun? I didn't see any of your clones dispel, Yugao asked. It's my new technique, chakra radar. By the outlines, I can tell you brought Hinata-chan, Kiba, and Shino with you. I'm guessing the fourth person is their sensei. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. That's impressive, Naruto-kun. If I didn't know better, I'd guess you were a Hyuga. Unfortunately, I'm not that good, he replied, standing and facing his fellow shinobi. So what brings you to our team meeting? I asked them to come for a joint training exercise. I know a team-on-team spar is unfair based on numbers, but I figured your shadow clones could even the odds. I figured getting used to fighting someone outside of your usual sparring partners would be good for you. No worries, Yugao-chan. I've got that under control. Captain, get over here, Naruto yelled to his clone. The female version of Naruto came running over, her blonde pigtails bouncing slightly. This is my blood clone, codename Captain. I have her transformed into my female form so she's easy to distinguish from the others. Since she's a blood clone, she'll only dispel if you hit her with a lethal shot. Try not to though, these blood clones are a pain to make. The group nodded, while Yugao and Kurenai made mental notes to ask the blonde where he learned another forbidden technique, though they'd make sure to do it after the other genin had left. It doesn't matter how many of your clones you make, Dobe. 0 times 0 is still 0. Naruto chuckled. Wow, Kiba, you can do basic math now. Kurenai-sensei, you must be a great teacher. Kurenai chuckled at the quip. One of the reasons she had agreed to this joint training was Yugao's raving about her blonde student. She had hoped the boy could knock some of the false bravado out of her student's system. He had the habit of thinking he was the alpha of any group he entered. She had asked his mother about it, but the woman had said it went too far even by Inuzuka standards. She had been half tempted to ask her female student to check if he was overcompensating for something, and she would have if she didn't think the girl would faint at the mere request. "All right, you six, line up on either side of the field and get ready for our signal. Remember, no lethal shots. Your goal is to incapacitate your opponents," Yugao said, as she and Kurenai stood on opposite sides of the field. Naruto smirked, placing his hand on Eri's lower back, tracing a message on her spine. "Stay near, Captain. She'll be your eyes." Eri looked at him and nodded. "Enough grab-ass with your slut dobe." The area grew cold as Naruto's hair covered his eyes. "Start the match," he said stoically. Yugao nodded to Kurenai, both women knowing that this would hurt for Kiba. "Begin," they yelled. "Hidden mist jutsu," Naruto whispered, as a thick blinding mist rolled over the field. "What? Too scared for your whore to see you get your ass kicked, dobe? Don't worry, when this is over I'll take her back to my place and show her what a real man looks like. She'll be screaming my name all night." The women in the area as well as Shino scowled. Hinata looked to Shino, her Byakugan activated. Shino nodded as the two of them stepped back. Kiba had this coming, and they both knew it. Naruto growled slightly before appearing in front of Kiba. His fist made direct contact with the young Inuzuka's gut, sending him flying back. His momentum was stopped when Naruto grabbed him by the throat. "Let me show you the error of your ways, Kiba," he said, lifting him up over his shoulders before slamming him into the ground. "Welcome to the last ride," he said, grabbing the boy, placing their faces between each other's knees before dropping to his knees. The movement slammed Kiba's skull into the ground. Naruto grabbed the boy's hands, crossing the unconscious teen's arms over his chest. "Rest in peace," he said, as he looked off into the distance. After delivering a well-deserved beatdown to one Kiba Inuzuka, the four remaining genin spent the next several hours sparring together, with Naruto using his clones to watch the action from every possible angle. His goal being, if there was a hole in their style, he wanted to be the one to find it. Around 11:30, the two senseis clapped, calling an end to the session. "All right, you guys, head home and shower. We're meeting Team 7, Team Guy, and Team 10 at the Akamichi barbecue in about an hour. Your attendance is mandatory," Yugao said, looking at the 5 genin. "This is a trust-building exercise between our promising genin." Naruto looked down at Kiba. "I expect you to be on your best behavior." Kiba whimpered slightly and nodded. "Yeah, I'll be good, but if that bitch Sakura is there, I might not be able to hold back. Hers and Ino's screaming hurts mine and Akamaru's hearing. Don't worry, I'll grab some of my silencing seals from the apartment. If they cause any trouble, we'll slap them on the two of them and enjoy our meal in peace. The Inuzuka clan might be interested in buying some of those. We can hear the Harunos from across the village, and it annoys the hell out of us. We'll talk after lunch. Now let's get going. I have a meeting with Gigi and Old Man Danzo at about 5:30, and then I'm going to dinner with a friend." "Oh, does Naruto-kun have yet another girlfriend?" Yugao teased, poking him in the ribs. "Don't be jealous, Yugao-chan," he teased back, sticking his tongue out at her. "And no, not a girlfriend. I'm just having dinner with Fuchan. We're just gonna be going over the finer details of the Suna trip." Yugao rolled her eyes playfully. "Such a rich and exciting life you lead outside of team meetings," she giggled. Kurenai nodded, looking at him. "She's right, Naruto-kun. As great as it is to see a genin taking so much initiative, you should still try to have a social life that doesn't revolve around work. If you don't, you're going to burn out. So what I'm hearing is, you want to take me out on a date to help me relax, so I don't burn out." Naruto grinned, wiggling his eyebrows. Kurenai's face turned pink as she waved her hands. That's not what I mean. I would never try to pick up a genin, she said defensively. Ah, so what I'm hearing is you're like Yugao-chan, and you want to wait until I pass the Chunin exams. Please, the last time someone passed during their rookie year was Itachi Uchiha. You may be skilled Naruto-kun, but you're not Itachi Uchiha. That's true, but I'm not trying to be. If you're that sure though, then how about a bet? If I get promoted, you have to let me take you out for the evening. All right, but if you lose, you're going to clean my apartment for free for 2 months. Kurenai smirked. Deal, now let's get going, Naruto said, walking off. Ino Yamanaka had thought herself the gossip queen of Konoha. She was under the impression she knew all the juiciest gossip in the world, which was why she couldn't wrap her head around the new look of the once dead last of her class. Gone was the 4 feet 9 inches runt of the litter. Now her eyes ran hungrily over the 5'6", and quite muscular for their age form of Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto-kun, what happened to you? Naruto, for his part, was slightly confused. Ino had never even acknowledged his existence in the academy, yet now she was calling him Naruto-kun. I got serious about my training after being introduced to the true world of shinobi, he said plainly. Everyone meet Eri-chan. She was placed on my team from the reserves alongside my new sensei Yugao-chan. Naruto-kun, you shouldn't refer to your sensei so casually, Asuma chided. She told me outside of official meetings she wants Eri-chan, and I not to refer to her as sensei outside of missions directly involving clients. It's in case we go undercover, we don't accidentally call her sensei and blow our cover. So it's okay, Asuma Ajisen. Wait, Naruto, why did you just call Asuma-sensei Ajisen? Shikamaru asked. I've always been close with Gigi. I was there when Asuma Aji came left for the Ninja Guardians, and I was with Gigi at the gates when he came home. It's true, the Sarutobi family has always treated Naruto-kun as an unofficial member thanks to his relationship with Dad. It's one of the reasons why Konohamaru took a liking to him so quickly. After he met Naruto-kun, he came and asked Dad and me about him. That's one of the reasons he's so comfortable going to him with problems. He thinks of Naruto-kun as his cousin, Asuma explained. Before we drop any more bombs about Naruto-kun, has anyone seen Sakura? It's not like her to be late, Ino asked, looking around. Kakashi decided it was time to speak up. Sakura has been recycled to the next senior class at the academy. She's been ordered to take anger management and receive counseling until the curriculum can be overhauled. She assaulted a fellow shinobi on multiple occasions. She's being given a second chance, but she won't graduate for at least another year or so. She would have been suspended if the assaults were her only charge, but she was also found guilty of failure to improve, even after she was warned. She didn't take her training seriously, and believed her mother being on the council would save her. The one-eyed shinobi turned his attention to his former student. I apologize, Naruto. I had a lot of time to think about it, and you were right to do what you did. I put the entire team in jeopardy with my actions. I just want you to know I tried. After you left, I tried to get her to train, but she just said she only needed to exercise enough to keep in shape, that her Sasuke-kun would protect her, and that her mother would keep her from being recycled. It was a mistake to put her on a team with the two of you in the first place. I haven't forgiven you, Kakashi, but if you continue on the redemptive path you seem to be on, I think we can repair the bridge as comrades. Thank you, Naruto. The rest of the meal went rather quietly, with Ino trying to send some subtle hints Naruto's way, though he spent the majority of his time talking to Tenten, Eri, and Lee. He weaved a compelling argument for Lee to use his weight seals instead of his weights, citing that he could deactivate them faster than he could drop his weights, as well as the decreased risk to his joints, and the fact that he wouldn't be exposed the way he was when he kneeled down to pull off the weights. Lee agreed to go through with the seals during their next joint training session. The genin were dismissed after lunch. However, Sasuke had asked Naruto to stay behind for a private conversation. So, what did you want to talk about? I wanted to thank you, he said, surprising Naruto. Sakura wasn't fit to be a kunoichi. I lost a lot of kunoichi family members during the massacre, including my mother, who used to be a jonin before she had Itachi. One of the reasons I was so angry during the academy was due to having to see girls like Sakura playing at being kunoichi. I didn't get a chance to thank you for that. I also thought about her behavior and realized I had my own mental issues to work through. I've been in counseling with Inochi Yamanaka for the past several months. How has that been going? Naruto asked. It's been going well. I know that I can't take Itachi alone. I know he hasn't been just sitting around. He's been getting stronger. He had 2 years in Umbu when he killed our clan, and it's been over 4 years since then. You're also overlooking one important piece of the puzzle, Naruto replied. The raven-haired boy raised an eyebrow. Itachi couldn't have stayed off the radar for this long without help from someone. Likely someone who has a village behind them. So you're saying I'll never get to him? Sasuke said in a disappointed tone. No, if you train hard enough and encounter him you might, but you can't go hunting him. Remember he told you to hunt him. He wants you focused on him and not on your own training. A wise man once said, the greatest revenge is living well. You have an opportunity here. It's the same one I have. I could spend my life trying to get revenge on Kiri, Kumo, and IWA for destroying my clan's home during the Second Shinobi War. Instead, I choose to get my revenge in a different way. I choose to rebuild the Uzumaki clan stronger than it was before. I choose to bring its might to Konoha, and make them watch as their most heinous act comes back to haunt them. So what you're saying is, my best revenge against Itachi would be to bring the Uchiha clan back to greatness. To show him that as long as one of us lives, he can't snuff us out. Exactly, you and I are survivors. Lee was born an orphan whose mother died during birth, and father died before he was born. You and I, though, we know what it's like to have someone rip our family away from us. We can get our revenge without ever having to set foot on the battlefield. That does mean you'll have to take an interest in girls for a change. Sasuke punched him in the arm, smirking. I actually have my eyes on a girl. You remember Ami from my fan club? Naruto nodded in response. I told her to hide her skills and stay in the center of the class, so she didn't have to deal with the others bullying her for trying to impress me. She's currently training as a reservist. I know I can't take her on my team. Our schedule is too specialized to fit my counseling. I was hoping you could talk to your sensei about putting her on your team until the Chunin exams. Before you ask, Eri was asked first because she's been in the reserves longer. Also, Ami-chan hasn't just been sitting on her ass the whole time. She comes to train with me at the compound on my days off, and studies scrolls from the Uchiha library when I'm busy. The Uchiha have copied a lot of techniques over the years. Ami is an earth user. I asked Kakashi-sensei to assess her for me. He says she's low Chunin. I'll talk to Gigi at our meeting tonight. She'll have to go through the same hell Eri went through. I'll also need to see her midriff and upper thighs. My team uses the weight seals I discussed with Lee earlier. I already applied them to Eri-chan and Yugao-chan. Alright, but if you're asking my girlfriend to show you her underwear, I expect the same. He smirked. I don't have an official girlfriend, but if Eri-chan said yes as a teammate, I wouldn't object. Though you're the one who will have to explain it to Ami. Sasuke paled for a moment. You know what, unless Ami-chan says something, don't bring it up. Actually, does the Uchiha compound have private hot springs? Yeah, 3 of them. Why? Sasuke asked skeptically. Simple, once Ami is on the team, you invite my team over for a dip in the springs. We bring swimsuits, and we both get to stare at beautiful women in bikinis. Sasuke chuckled, shaking his head. Some things never change. No matter how strong you get, you are always going to be a sneaky bastard. Well, we are shinobi. It comes with the job. Later that evening, Naruto once again sat with Hiruzen and Danzo. Hiruzen had prepared some tea and dismissed his umbu for the meeting. If we're going to keep up these regular meetings, we should find a 3-person game, Naruto-kun. The Hokage chuckled, taking a drag of his pipe. I wouldn't dream of asking you to change your game, Gigi, though I'd love to be an occasional observer. It would give me the chance to study strategy from those who have experience in warfare. Wisdom beyond your years, Naruto-kun. Danzo nodded. Though I do enjoy our banter, Danzo, I have a date with Fuchan tonight, and I'd rather not keep her waiting. Danzo raised an eyebrow. A date? I hope you don't think I assigned Fu to you as an escort, Naruto-kun. Not at all, Fuchan, and I have agreed that we should be seen in public together, even if it's only platonically. It will make people less suspicious if she has to come to my home to deliver something, or if she has to come find me for something. That is a good idea, Naruto-kun, as long as you aren't taking advantage of my agents. Now what brings you here today? I want to be read in on why you want my reinforcement seals on the walls. I already have a suspicion that something will take place during the Chunin exams. I'd like to know what suspicions you have. Sometimes you're too perceptive, Naruto-kun, Danzo said. Hiruzen thought for a moment, taking a long drag. That he is, but if we're going to ask for his help with our defenses, I feel he should have knowledge on what he's defending against. Danzo nodded, turning to Naruto. My agents have heard rumors that Orochimaru intends to attack the village sometime during the Chunin exams. He may have help from another village. I believe he will try to go after Suna. With their struggling finances, he may try to use them against us. It's one of the reasons I'm for your plan to purchase land from them. I'd also like you to purchase whatever tools you need for the farm locally. Hire their genin for D-rank missions to help with the fields and construction. I'll personally help bankroll such things with a grant rather than a loan. You won't have to pay it back. Is there anything you need for this mission? Yes, I need whatever books you can get me on advanced Fuinjutsu. I've heard of Orochimaru. If he's involved, then chances are he'll try to use his snakes to get past the walls. I want to try and learn enough Fuinjutsu by the time we leave that I can leave my blood clone captain in charge of using shadow clones to put seals strong enough to block his summons while the wall's defenses bombard them. I'll also look into adding launch seals in addition to the fire seals. This way, when the defenses are activated, they'll start by launching a volley of arrows at the enemy, before launching fireballs that could do damage to the forest. I'll have Fu bring the books to the training ground during your morning workout tomorrow. Now do you have any other business to address? Yes, a favor from Sasuke Uchiha. He has asked me to request that one of our old classmates, Ami, be moved from the reserves to my team. Something I feel should have happened when you moved Eri anyway, since both of them were waiting on a team to form. He's already had her evaluated by Kakashi, and her skills are low Chunin. Now I know it's not likely she'll get a promotion during the exams, seeing as she doesn't have experience outside of D-rank missions, but I feel the exams will be a good experience for her, and before you ask. Sasuke didn't request her on his team because they are romantically involved, and B, he didn't feel she would get enough training, as his schedule with Kakashi customized for his mental counseling with Inochi Yamanaka. I don't think I have to stress to either of you the importance of him continuing those sessions. Danzo and Hiruzen looked at each other knowingly. The blonde had come here with his bow loaded. He'd effectively neutralized any argument they would have had before they could make it. All right, Naruto-kun, I will have Ami report to your team's meeting tomorrow. Since you're no longer under apprentice status, there's no need for a formal meeting. I will say this, you do need to make it to the finals of the Chunin exams, so we can give you the vest already. Hiruzen is right, Naruto-kun. Keeping a shinobi of your caliber a genin any longer than absolutely necessary is a waste. If it wasn't for the fact that we wanted to show off the new swordsman of Konoha, I would have suggested you for a field promotion months ago. Danzo added. I would have immediately approved it too, but Konoha's performance in the exams has been lacking in recent years with no real standouts. That is why we've held you back as long as we have. I understand. The good of the village comes before any promotion, and the Chunin exams are the perfect opportunity to show off the best of our village's current generation of shinobi. It's good to see how much you've matured, Naruto-kun. Now run along, Naruto-kun. Fu may be a trained root agent, but she's still a woman, and you do well not to keep her waiting. Roger that, old man. Thank you both. I'll see you both later, he said, waving to the both of them as he jumped from the window. Well, you know how to make an entrance, I'll give you that. Fu said, from behind him. When Naruto turned around, he was shocked to see how beautiful she looked. He had always thought she was pretty, but now seeing her long legs and toned body wrapped in a burnt orange sundress, Naruto couldn't help but notice the amount of natural beauty that radiated off of her. If your mouth stays open like that, something may fly into it, she said, closing his mouth. Naruto shook his head. Sorry, Fu-chan. I've just never seen you outside of your uniform. You're extremely beautiful. Thank you, Naruto-kun, but don't think I'll be as easy to get as your other love interest. I was trained by Danzo-sama to control my emotions. That means something as simple as your silver words won't win me over, she said, looking down at him. Naruto chuckled and kissed the back of her hand. I wouldn't dream of it, Fu-chan. I happen to like our game of cat and mouse, he said as he began leading her away. Now let's get you something to eat. Afterwards, I have a special treat set up for you back at my place. The two shinobi spent the majority of dinner discussing their past missions and the mission to Suna, which Fu would stay back and pass messages through Naruto's Captain Clone, which he had taken to calling Naruko. After dinner, Fu had followed Naruto back to his apartment, where she saw a group of clones looking over some blueprints. What are they doing, Naruto-kun? Finalizing some plans after the Suna mission, Tsunade-chan, and I will be out of town on a mini vacation until the Chunin exams begin. I decided between the month that I'll be out of the village and probably 1 week I'll be out of the apartment with the first 2 tests. I figured it would be the best time to do the renovations I wanted to this place. If you can't find Naruko throughout the day, come here to the landlord office. I have a second blood clone who is in charge of my properties. Her name is Rias. I'll keep that in mind. Now, what is this treat you've been talking about? She asked as she followed his motion and sat on the couch. I've had several clones studying anatomy and massage for the past month. I know how hard you work, and I know how much time and effort you put in to make sure my intel is accurate and that I have the proper tools, so I wanted to do something nice for you, he said, pulling the Ottoman in front of her, sitting on it. Lifting one of her feet, he placed it in his lap and began applying some lotion. Despite her years of training when it came to masking her emotions, Fu couldn't help but sigh and relax as she felt his hands begin to work her soles. It had been so long since she had indulged in anything even resembling a massage, and it showed. The muscles in her feet were wound in knots so tight, Naruto thought he might have to cut them open and undo them by hand. Once he was satisfied that her feet were properly relaxed, he moved his attention up to her calves, making sure to pay extra attention to the small muscle in front of her shin, which was responsible for a lot of her long-distance running. Naruto-kun, I have got to admit, when you put your mind to something, you seem to excel quickly in your studies. Naruto smiled as he gently squeezed her calf. Like I said, Fu-chan, I wanted to do something special for you. You do so much for me and never ask for anything in return, he said, guiding her to lay on her stomach. If I can do something nice for you, it's worth it. He smiled, lighting a pleasant-smelling candle. Thankfully, Fu had chosen a backless sundress for their outing, and while Naruto had to take a moment to pull his eyes away from her round backside and the side view of her breast, he diligently began applying the massage oil to her back muscles. Fu couldn't help but let out a small moan, as she felt months of accumulated knots seem to fade away at the young man's touch. It truly surprised her. She had never let anyone give her so much as a foot massage. Normally she'd make a shadow clone and let it do the work. Yet here she was, allowing some boy she had only met a few months ago to have his hands on her with her back to him. His chakra even seemed to have a warm, calming effect on her. When his hands were on her, she felt as if she would melt into the couch. The following morning, Fu awoke in Naruto's bed. Her sandals sat next to the bed, and her hair undone from her ponytail. The orange locks splayed out across the pillow. The young kunoichi jumped slightly when she heard the living room door open and close. Putting her sandals back on, she walked back into the living room. She was surprised to see Naruto holding a small paper bag. "Oh, Fu-chan, you're awake," Don't worry about reporting in. I told old man Danzo you slept over. He sent someone to your barracks to get you a change of clothes. Now why don't you go take a shower while I get us some breakfast ready? The old man said you didn't have to report in until 10, since that's when he would have the books you were supposed to bring me ready. Thank you, Naruto-kun, but I don't wish to impose on you, Fu said, taking the bag from him. Nonsense. I won't feel right if I let you leave without breakfast, he said using his famous puppy dog eyes jutsu. Damn it, Danzo-sama never trained us for a jutsu like this, Fu thought to herself before letting out a sigh. I guess since I apparently took over your bed last night, the least I can do is join you for breakfast. Speaking of which, how did I end up in your bed? Naruto smiled, placing the groceries on the counter. You fell asleep during your back rub, so I took off your hair tie and laid you in the bed. I figured you'd be more comfortable on the bed, so I took the couch. You didn't have to do that, Naruto-kun. I would have been fine on the couch. You were my guest, and besides I saw how many knots you had. You needed the bed a lot more than I did. Now go shower, I have breakfast to cook, he said, shooing the young woman out of the kitchen. After a light breakfast with Fu, Naruto made his way to the training ground to meet with his now fully formed team. While he awaited their arrival, he set his clones to their usual routine. When the three women arrived, they were greeted to the sight of 100 Narutos going through a morning routine. Is this normal for him? Ami asked, her purple hair tied back in a bun, and her athletic physique packed tightly into a black skin-tight bodysuit. For him, yes, Yugawa said, her eyes catching one of the Narutos doing laps around the field. Naruto-kun, time for team training, she called out. Naruto nodded and made his way over to the three women. Good morning, ladies. Ami-chan, it's good to see you. Eri-chan, how are you doing with those medical books? I'm doing well. Thankfully, Tsunade-sama made them very easy to understand, she said with a smile. I'd also like to thank you for talking to the Hokage about me being assigned to your team. I know you and Sasuke-kun have never seen eye to eye on much, so I wanted you to know how grateful I am that you honored his request, Ami said with a smile. And I hope you accept my apologies for any bullying that went on in the academy. I tried to keep it to a minimum while maintaining my cover. Consider it in the past. I already spoke to Sasuke, and we've agreed that your cover was best for your own safety, Naruto said, waving his hand. Besides, I now have my suspicions on who it was leaving notes in my backpack on days I was sent out of class. Ami blushed and looked to the side. I didn't think it was fair how they treated you, so I'd copy down my notes and put them in your backpack during lunch. Thank you, Ami-chan. Now let's get to training. We don't have long until the Chunin exams, and we need to get our teamwork up to par. Well said, Naruto-kun. Today we'll be working on battle formations and combination jutsu, Yugao said. To say the two young women were exhausted was an understatement. It seemed as if their sadistic sensei and over-energized teammate were hell-bent on breaking the two down and molding them into ideal shinobi. The second part wasn't so bad. It was the first part that was a living hell. After their team exercises, Naruto had placed the weight seals on Ami before driving the two young girls into the ground with physical training. I thought Sasuke-kun's training was extreme, but this is a whole other level of insane, Ami said, from her spot lying on the ground. He does this every day. I don't know how I'm still alive, Eri said, from her spot next to her, sweat pouring off of both girls. You'll both live, Yugao said, taking a swig from her water bottle. The two girls glared at her before an idea came to Eri's mind. Naruto-kun, I don't think Yugao-chan is getting a good enough workout. I think she could use some of your weight seals. After all, I'd feel bad if training us forced our sensei to slack off on her own training, the brunette said, with an evil grin on her face. Yugao did her best not to pale, while trying to make the young girl's head explode with her glare. She's right, Yugao-chan. We can't afford to have you getting rusty on us, Naruto said, standing behind her. The purple-haired Umbu knew she was in a corner. If she turned down the seals, it would make it look as if she didn't take her training as seriously as her genin squad. Of course, Naruto-kun. I should have asked you earlier, she said, stripping down to her bra and panties, her hourglass form now on full display for her genin. The action caused the two female members of her team to glare slightly in jealousy. Naruto would remember to thank Tenten later, as her help with his seduction resistance training was the only thing keeping his nose from bleeding at the moment. Working quickly, he began applying the seals to his sensei's body, while his clones stole glances, attempting to burn the image into his memory for years to come. Yugao noticed the stolen looks her students' clones were giving her, and mentally smirked. Seems the extra girls in your life haven't taken any of your attention away from me, Naruto-kun. Alright, starting tomorrow we'll all be using our seals constantly during training. For now you're all dismissed. Actually, Sensei, Sasuke-kun has invited our team over to the Uchiha compound for a dip in his private hot spring. He said we should all show up at about 7 with our swimsuits. Ami said, forcing herself to sit up. After agreeing to meet at 7, the team went home to shower, change, and eat, before meeting at the Uchiha compound. I thought I smelled fish cakes, Sasuke greeted with a smirk. Careful, Sasuke. You stay in the water too long, we'll be having boiled duck for dinner, Naruto quipped back, bumping fists with his comrade. Let's get to the spring. It looks like your team might collapse if we keep them standing here too long. The two male genins sat in the water, waiting for their female companions to exit the changing room. The two talked about their training in recent months, comparing notes on training methods. Their conversation was stopped when the three women exited the changing room, now standing in front of them in their swimsuits. Yugao's E-cups were squished together in a black skull print bikini top, and her bubbly ass was pressed against a pair of matching bottoms. Aries' high B-cups created a wide valley of cleavage in her black cherry print bikini. Her backside, while not as toned as her sensei, was proportionally as bubbly as the older woman's. Ami blushed as she stood next to her sensei and teammate in her blue seashell print bikini that form-fitted to her low B-cups and hugged her toned waist. If you two don't pick your jaws up, you're going to drown, Yugao smirked as she stepped into the water. The boys quickly shut their mouths and shook their heads. Sorry, Yugao-chan, it's not every day you get to see 3 stunning bikini-clad beauties this close, Naruto said. Eri chuckled, slapping his chest lightly. One of these days, that silver tongue is going to get you into trouble, Naruto-kun. She's right, Naruto-kun. The rest of Konoha's male population may get jealous if you continue seducing every female in the village, Yugao teased with a giggle. Well, if the other men in the village were more gentlemanlike, they wouldn't have anything to worry about. After all, Sasuke is a jackass most of the time, but he managed to have enough class and manners to get a girl as beautiful as Ami-chan to go out with him, Naruto replied, gesturing to the young Uchiha. Sasuke punched his comrade in the arm. Keep that up, and you're not coming back here, he smirked. Oh please, you know you love me. Besides, once I buy the plot behind my apartment, I'll be building my own hot springs with Fuinjutsu, Naruto said before getting serious. Sasuke, have you and Ami-chan discussed the CRA? Ami rubbed her arm as Sasuke sighed. I figured it would come up at some point. The timer starts when I turn 16 or make Jonin. Ami-chan and I know that as the last Uchiha, they'll want a minimum of 3 wives. If there was a way out of it, I would take it. I'll try to figure something out. I've asked a lot of the old men, so I may have to tilt the scales back in my favor before a big ask like that. Though, I will have my clones looking into any laws they can find for loopholes, Naruto said, leaning back. Thanks, Naruto-kun, Ami said. Yeah, thanks. The Uchiha Law Library has access to all the laws going back to the beginning of the village. It's on the other end of the compound. I'll show you there before you leave. You can leave your clones there to go nuts until they dispel. Better yet, I'll leave a blood clone there. She'll make clones to study the library until they found every loophole possible. Ami asked. Naruto-kun's blood clones produce their own chakra and only die if hit with a fatal attack. They can also use jutsu like shadow clones. He gives them specific tasks, like Captain, who oversees his clones' training, and Rias, who oversees his rental properties. Naruto has them henge as women, so that they're easy to distinguish from regular clones. Think of these clones as his officers, and the shadow clones as his foot soldiers. He gives the blood clone reign over a specific project, and she delves out the individual duties to the shadow clones. Yugao explained. Essentially yes, only at the suggestion of a friend of mine, I've taken to calling Captain Naruto, since she's essentially a female version of myself. Naruto pointed out. I'll get her on it though. After the group had finished their soak with Naruto and Sasuke letting the girls use the changing room. While it may have seemed polite, it was actually an effort to give their erections time to go down. Once the girls left, Sasuke led Naruto to the library, where the blonde made a blood clone that turned into a tall woman with short white hair and a single braid over her shoulder. Her generous bust and wide hips were packed tightly into a form-fitting kimono. This is Isane. Whenever you want an update, just go find her, he instructed before departing. After 2 more weeks of intense training, Naruto's team was packed and on their way to Suna. So Naruto-kun, how long do you think it will take us to get to Suna? Eri asked. If we deactivate our weights, I'd say about 3 days if we stop for meals and sleep. That sounds best. I'd like us to get back as soon as possible. We need to get back as soon as possible. I want us to get in as much training as we can before the exams. Yugao said, deactivating her weight seals. Her genin followed suit, and the 4 dashed off into the forest surrounding the village. Halt! State your business. The Chunin at the Suna gate ordered. Naruto Uzumaki, here with my team on business, Naruto said, handing the man his ID. All right, go on in, he said, ushering them in. Before I go, where can I find a real estate broker? Office of Publicly Held Properties. It's 2 blocks west of the Kazekage Tower, he said, pointing to the tower. Thank you, Naruto said, leading his team towards the tower. Yes, how can I help you? The young lady behind the reception desk asked. I'm looking for a large plot of land just outside the village walls, preferably something 25 acres or more. The woman handed him a stack of property listing that fit his criteria. Looking over the files and the attached pictures, Naruto held up one of the files. I'll take this 40-acre plot in the west area. After paying for it, Naruto was escorted to the lot, which could be summed up by one word: sand. Thank you, here's the check, Naruto said, signing the check. Thank you, sir. Here's the deed to a property, the woman said with a smile before leaving. Where to next, Naruto-kun? Eri asked, applying more sunscreen. The Kazekage Tower. Old man Danzo asked me to hire their genin to do the work on the plot. It's our way of helping our ally financially until the farm starts bringing in revenue for the village, Naruto said, leading the group to the tower. Once the team had ordered the mission, Naruto sent the girls back to the hotel to relax while he and his blood clone waited at the lot for the teams to arrive. The first team consisted of the Kazekage's children, Temari, Gaara, and Kankuro, while the other 2 teams contained some of Suna's other genin, including a shy girl named Matsuri, who kept her eyes to the ground. Alright guys, the reason I hired 3 teams is because I want to remove about 8 feet of sand from the marked-off area. After that, we're going to wall in the area and fill it with the planting soil I've got sealed in these scrolls. The first part shouldn't be a problem, Gaara said in his signature monotone. Placing his hands in front of him, he began raising them up. The sand seemed to shift before rising up out of the ground. Moving his hands to the west, he set the sand down about 100 feet from the marked-off area. Handy skill in this area, Naruto commented, taking note of the Kekei Genkai. Unsealing the bags of soil, he handed each genin a set of gloves. I'll give you guys a hand. Now let's get moving. I want to get this done by sundown, he said, jumping down into the hole. The other genin quickly followed, as he unsealed pallets of bricks at key locations. All right, we'll split and begin building the wall off of these pallets. The walls should keep the sand from covering the soil, while the grass grows back in. The genin nodded, splitting up. Temari stuck to the pallet closest to Naruto. After hearing that a Konoha team had requested a multi-team D-rank mission to work on a large plot of land one of them had purchased. Her father had given her the additional mission of getting close to the client and determining his intentions. So Naruto-san, why did you come all the way to Suna to buy a plot of desert land? She asked. Well, Temari-chan, it's simple really. I started making a name for myself by buying up rental properties in Konoha's red light district, and while I was talking to the Hokage and one of the village elders, I found out that Suna was struggling when it came to your finances and food production. I figured I'd buy up some property here, give you guys some missions working on the plot, and buying up giving your craftsmen some business making farming equipment. The grass should take about 3 weeks to come in. By that time the livestock should be here. I'll be using a water jutsu to create an aquifer underneath the area to act as a water supply for the plot. I'll be making trips back here once a year or so to replenish it. Do you think my village is some sort of charity case? Temari said, her eyes narrowing incredulously. Of course I don't, but Suna is an ally. We should help each other out when things are tough. If building a farm in the area is what it takes to get Suna back on its feet, then it's my pleasure to help you out, he said with a genuine smile. I'll buy it for now, but I've got my eye on you. Temari smirked. Another one. Did someone just dump a bucket of pheromones down my pants when I wasn't looking? He cried comically. Temari giggled, covering her mouth. It's the eyes? Deep blue eyes like you just attract all the girls, she teased. Very funny, Temari-chan. Don't let my team catch you flirting with me. They may think I took this mission just to get another girlfriend. Temari's eyes narrowed again. So you're a player? No, I'm in my village's CRA, which means I'll have to have multiple wives. If it were up to me, I'd settle down with the woman I love, and that's it, but I have to do what's best for my village. I also have a friendly personality, and seem to attract more female friends than I do male friends. Temari sighed. I understand. My father is the Kazekage, so service to the village before the self is something that's been drilled into me since birth. Yeah, it sucks sometimes, but if it's for the good of my home, I'll do just about anything, even if it means trekking to the desert in the summer to build a farm. Speaking of which, how do you plan to manage this farm and stay on the carrier track in Konoha? Temari asked, as they continued absent-mindedly stacking bricks. I've got a special clone that can act independently. It'll henge into a woman, so when it makes shadow clones it's easy to find. The clone can pretty much last as long as it doesn't get hit with a kill shot. It will report back to me between my visits and manage everything. That includes steady D-rank missions for the village, working the farm. Well, I'm glad Suna has allies like you. Most others would take advantage of our current weakness and try to bully us out of whatever they can get. Having strong allies only makes one's own village stronger. If others are too blind to see that, it's their loss, Naruto said, as he climbed up the wall to lay more bricks. It took until the end of the day, but with the help of Naruto's clones, the genin managed to build the enclosure and fill it with soil. Good work today, everyone. I'm gonna set up the pond before heading to the hotel. I've got the 9 of you tomorrow as well. We'll be assembling the barn for the livestock and spreading the grass seeds. Meet here at 8 sharp. The teams nodded, bidding each other good night, before dispersing for the night. Naruto himself making his way back to his team's hotel for a little relaxation, before meeting his team for dinner. So how was everyone's day? Naruto asked, taking his seat at the head of the small table. It was fine, Naruto-kun. We went a few miles into the desert and trained for a while. Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm not going to miss running on sand. Ami groaned. I second that. Eri said, taking a drink. Well, Eri-chan, you know what the problem with sand is, right? Naruto smirked. What? She asked, an eyebrow raised. It's rough and coarse, and it gets everywhere, he said in a low, moody tone. The three girls broke out into fits of giggles. What kind of cheesy shit was that, Naruto-kun? Eri asked. Yeah, that's something I'd expect Sasuke-kun to say when he was doing his moody academy boy act. Ami added. It got the three of you to laugh, but don't worry. My clones will be offering foot rubs tonight in your room. Still don't see why you get a room all to yourself, Eri said with a pout. Because I paid for us to stay in a nice hotel instead of one of the cheap hotels the village would have paid for, and I felt it would be more proper to have myself segregated from my female teammates. Naruto said. I don't know, Naruto-kun. We are in a foreign country on a diplomatic visit. It might be best if we slept two to a room, Yugao said half seriously. Fine, I only got a single in my room though, so I guess I'm taking the couch. Naruto sighed. Nope, you're stuck being my teddy bear, Eri said with a grin. Wow, so forward, Eri-chan, Yugao teased. Eri blushed, looking away. Well, I just thought it was the best course of action. It wouldn't be proper for Ami-chan to share a bed with him, and it wouldn't be good if we had our two strongest members centered in the same room. That is a well-thought-out argument for getting to cuddle with Naruto-kun, Eri-chan, Yugao teased. Don't listen to them, Eri-chan. Yugao-chan is just grumpy that she has to wait until after the Chunin exams to cuddle with me, Naruto teased, sticking his tongue out. Keep it up, Naruto-kun. I'm keeping tabs on everything I need to get you back for when the exams are over. Oh, I'm so scared. The following morning Naruto awoke early and got ready to meet with the Kazekage for the official part of his mission. The hardest part of his morning was trying to get out of Eri's vice grip. He'd have to thank the second Hokage for creating the shadow clone jutsu later. Naruto Uzumaki, I've heard a bit about you from my daughter. You made quite the impression on her yesterday, Raza said, brushing his shaggy brown hair from his face. She made quite an impression on me as well, Kazekage-sama, Naruto said in his most professional tone. Raza is fine. After all, you're here as an ally and as a benefactor to the village. Speaking of, what brings you to my office? Konoha thought it only proper that one of its own shinobi personally deliver our invitation to you for the Chunin exam finals. I take it you'll be entering the exams? Raza asked, tenting his fingers. I will, and I hope to show you the strength that Konoha brings to our alliance in the finals. I'll be looking forward to it, Naruto-kun. I do have a simple request though, if you wouldn't mind indulging me. Of course, Raza. I plan to take the hat from our Hokage in the near future, and I hope your reign as Kazekage is long. If I can start our relationship off right, I will. Ever the diplomat I see. I simply would like to see the sword. You see, I've never had the opportunity to see one in person. Naruto nodded, unsealing the blade from his arm, placing it on the desk. So what do you think? The craftsmanship is phenomenal. I wish Kiri had bothered to document how they made these, Raza said, looking the blade over. They didn't document it because they didn't make them. From what I can tell based on my own research, the blades were created by combining Fuinjutsu throughout the forging process. That level of Fuinjutsu at the time these blades were made, and even today would have only been achievable by one group. Raza's eyes widened slightly. The Uzumaki clan. Naruto chuckled dryly. It's funny. My family created these blades to aid their ally in their infancy, and only a few short generations later, they turned them on us. I was a mere genin when it happened all those years ago. Kiri, Kumo, and IWA attacked Yuzu. I hope you know we tried to get to them. We were fighting Iwa's men on our northern front, and what men we could send had to fight across the continent to get there. By the time we got there, it was over, he said remorsefully. It's okay, Raza. It took 3 of the major villages a month to siege the village. In that time they managed to get word to both Suna and Konoha. They also managed to get several families to scatter to the winds. I have more family out in the world somewhere. I just have to find them. In honor of the alliance we once held with your family, and the great favor you've done for my village, I'll instruct my shinobi to keep their ears out for any word on possible Uzumaki sightings. Thank you, Raza. I should get to the work site, Naruto replied, resealing his blade. After all, I feel I'm riding the razor's edge with your daughter right now, and I'd prefer her not to rip it out from under me for being late to my own project. Raza chuckled, nodded. Yes, Temari does have quite the temper. I believe she likes you though. She would have castrated most other men for mentioning multiple girlfriends, without waiting for an explanation. Well, I look forward to seeing her combat skills in action during the exams. Naruto smiled, before returning to the work site. After another long day's work, Naruto and the Tsunagenin had finally finished seeding the barn and seeding. Man, Naruto-kun, you're a slave driver. Temari groaned, holding her back, as she watched her fellow Tsunagenin depart the work site. If you promise not to hit me, I'd offer to take you over to the barn and give you a massage, Naruto said with a smile. Any other day, I might have hit you. Today, though, I am way too sore to turn down a free massage. She smiled back, walking towards the barn. Unsealing his cot and a towel, Naruto turned to leave the barn. Strip and put the towel on, he said, stepping outside. All right, but if this is just an excuse to see me naked, delegate or not, I will rip your balls off, Temari warned. If I wanted to see you naked, I'd take you on several dates and get to know you first, Naruto quipped. Make it to the finals at the exams, and we'll talk about a date. Temari smirked, as she stripped down to her panties and laid on the cot, placing her hands in front of her. Oh, I plan to win the whole thing, Naruto said, unsealing a battery-powered hot rock heater and some massage oil before beginning his massage on her upper back. Temari let out a slight groan as she relaxed into his hands. If you're that confident, I'll make a bet with you. Well, I am a betting man. What's the wager? Naruto asked as he moved his hands along her back. If you impress my father during the exams, I'll agree to either a political marriage contract or a contract to give birth to your child to strengthen our alliance, she offered. All right, but in either scenario, you're going to have to go out on a few dates with me. I've enjoyed talking to you the last few days. I'd love to get to know you better, Naruto said, as he placed the hot rocks down her spine, relaxing it. Well, you're already earning quite a few brownie points between this professional level massage and the fact that you'd prefer to actually get to know me rather than just bed me and put a baby in me. If I wanted someone to just pop out babies for me, I'd go down to the red light district and pay a few of the girls to carry them. I know a few of them who would love the 9 months of paid vacation while they were pregnant. So you spend a lot of time in the red light district? Temari asked, letting out a groan as he began working her thighs. I grew up in the area. I wasn't well liked as a child, and I had several attempts on my life. Gigi, or as you know him, the Hokage, gave me an apartment in the red light district because nobody there cared about who I was. I worked as a broom boy in one of the gambling houses for pocket money, so I was pretty much raised by the working girls. Naruto explained. You're a Jinchuriki, aren't you? Temari asked. How did you figure it out? My brother Gaara is our village's Jinchuriki. It's how he manages to use sand release. The problem is, we don't have a seal master in the village, so the seal they put on him wasn't that well made. It doesn't allow him to sleep, and the beast drives him crazy for some reason. Temari sighed. She did love her brother, but his lack of sleep and the beast's influence made him a danger. What level was the person at when they put the seal on him? Level 4. Why? Naruto sighed. Having someone who's a level 4 do a Jinchuriki seal would be the equivalent of asking an academy student to create a canyon with a single earth jutsu. Even if it's possible, it won't end well. You seem to be well versed in Fuinjutsu. What level are you? Temari asked. Currently level 8. As we speak, one of my blood clones back in my village is having my shadow clones continue my studies. The thing is, Fuinjutsu isn't like a high-rank ninjutsu. It's not just about measuring out the right amount of chakra and mastering the shape and nature transformation. The higher you go with Fuinjutsu, the more complex the formulas get. I'll give you an example. A genin with enough chakra and a good grasp on the concept of shape transformation could learn the shadow clone without learning the regular clone. However, a Fuinjutsu user can't learn level 2 seals without first learning level 1. It's one of the reasons why Fuinjutsu is so much harder to learn than the other shinobi skills, and why most people don't stick with it beyond basic storage and explosive scrolls. They can't skip to the flashy high-level skills without putting in the effort to learn the basics. Would you be able to improve Gaara's seal? Temari asked hopefully. I can take a look. If the existing seal matrix is decent, I can alter it to keep the beast quit and allow him to sleep. I'll need approval from Raza though. I'll ask him to send an overnight message to your Hokage. If you guys wouldn't mind hanging back for an extra day. I'm sure I can talk my team into one more day. While we're waiting for a reply, I'd appreciate it if you let me take you out to lunch. Massages and you buy lunch. I may just have to keep you. Temari giggled. That night, while Naruto waited for Eri to get out of the bath, he decided to try and make contact with his own demon for help. Taking a meditative state, he began focusing on his seal. Naruto's eyes opened to a sewer-like area. My mindscape sucks. Imagine having to live in it. A voice called from further into his mindscape. Following the voice, he found himself in front of a large steel cage. I take it you're the Kyuubi. That's right. Why have you come to me? Looking to use my power to become stronger. The beast scoffed. No, I'm just here to ask about the Suna Jinjuriki. I was told his bijou was causing him to go crazy. I was hoping you'd have some information. A human who doesn't want a bijou's power. How interesting. Alright human, I'll tell you. My brother Shikaku was originally sealed inside of a madman. When he was about to be put to death, he used his knowledge of seals to place a part of his soul in Shikaku. The action drove him insane. If we could separate the two, it would revert Shikaku back to his original form. He'd still be a pain in the ass brat, but he'd stop with the serial killing. I take it you have a method to do so? Naruto asked. Yes, once you alter the seal to allow his container to sleep, place your hand on it and focus my chakra into it. The two of us will then enter his mindscape, where I will rip the essence out of him. As payment, I'd like you to imagine me up more suitable living arrangements, preferably something with lots of trees. Naruto concentrated and attempted to change the scenery for his tenant. The world around them became distorted before shifting into a replica of the forest that surrounded Konoha. There are lots of predators in the forest of death back in Konoha. If you wait until after the second exam, I'll think up some of them. For now, I've just created rabbits and squirrels for you to chase. I'm sure you have the ability to alter your size. With their agreement settled, Naruto exited the mindscape and took his turn in the bath before settling in for the night. So Naruto-kun, you dragged us all the way to Suna so you could pick up another girlfriend? Am I not enough for you anymore? She said, giving him her best crocodile tears. Now Eri-chan, you know that's not true. Plus you haven't even asked me out yet. Naruto pouted. I thought you liked me. Am I not cute anymore? He sniveled, looking at her with his famous puppy dog eyes. Eri hugged him, rubbing his cheek. No fair, Naruto-kun. You know no one can beat you at the puppy dog eyes. I know. He smiled, giving her a kiss on the forehead. Just for that, you're taking me on a proper date when we get back to the village, Eri said, grabbing his face and pulling him into a deep kiss. As you wish, Eri-chan, he said, kissing back, his tongue finding its way into her mouth. Lemon. Eri grabbed his shoulders and rolled the two over, so that she was on top of him, her hands running through his messy locks. Naruto placed his hands on her waist, pulling her into him. Eri-chan, are you sure? Naruto asked, his erection pressed against her stomach. I am Narukuin, she said, moving a hand down to his erect member. Oh Kami, you're huge, Narukuin. Naruto moved his hands lower, his firm calloused hands gripping her shapely ass. You're so tight and firm, Eri-chan. All that training is really paying off. He grinned, giving it a solid smack. Eri let out a small yelp. Looking down at him, she smirked playfully. Naughty Narukuin, if you can't control those hands, I'll have to tie them up. Before you do that, he smirked and placed a privacy seal on the wall. There, now we can be as loud as we want, he said, kissing down the crook of her neck. I like the sound of that, Narukuin. Eri purred, before undoing the zipper of his pants, allowing the thick veiny member to spring free. The young brunette smirked and wrapped her fingers around the throbbing member. Naruto let out a moan as his cock was gently stroked. Deciding to have a little fun of his own, he reached behind his lover and pulled her shorts around her thighs, revealing her lacy blue thong. Grabbing the waistband of her panties, he pulled up slightly. The soft fabric rubbing against her clit caused Eri to let out a low moan. Flipping the two of them over, the blonde slid his way down and spread her legs before his tongue found its way to her clit. Eri moaned, grabbing the blonde by his hair once again. She couldn't believe that a girl from the poor side of Konoha was here, in a 5-star hotel, in a foreign land, about to give herself to not only an amazing guy, but also possibly the strongest shinobi of her generation. She let out a slight whimper when he pushed 2 of his fingers into her womanhood, but the pain quickly turned to pleasure when she felt his fingers curl backwards and rub her G-spot. Her moans only got louder when his mouth wrapped around her clit and created a vacuum-like suction. Thank you, Tenchan, Naruto thought as he narrowed his tongue and began flicking it over her clit. Eri continued to moan, before she felt her walls clutching at her lover's fingers, her body shaking as her first orgasm rocked her body. Rising to his knees, Naruto finished the process of removing her shorts and panties. Throwing her legs over his shoulders, the blonde shinobi leaned in and pushed the entire length into her womanhood. Eri let out a small cry, gripping the sheets. After taking a minute to adjust to her partner's size, she tapped his thigh to signal she was ready for him to move. Gripping her hips, Naruto began rocking his hips, back and forth. Using his newfound chakra control, he began channeling chakra into his member, causing it to vibrate. Eri's moans began to get louder as she felt the thick member begin to vibrate against her G-spot, her thighs trembling and her hands gripping at the sheets of the bed, her moderately sized breast bouncing slightly with each thrust. Leaning into his thrusts, Naruto pushed the flexible girl's legs to her shoulders and began licking the edges of her areola teasingly. His thrusts began to gain more speed. With each thrust, he started to add a little more chakra, causing the vibration of his cock to increase in speed. Eri screamed out in pleasure as a second larger orgasm racked her system, her juices squirting across her lover's stomach. She let out a small squeal of surprise when she was turned over and her shoulders lowered to the mattress. Her pleasure quickly returned when her partner grabbed hold of her hips and began humping her like a wild animal. Naruto was surprised when he felt an almost animalistic presence take over his body. His limbs seemed to move on instinct as he flipped his mate into a mating position and began thrusting harder than before. He could feel his own orgasm fast approaching. His spine tingled in excitement, his fingers digging into the meat of her hips as he began thrusting more savagely, the whisker marks on his face becoming more noticeable. Eri let out a low moan, her eyes rolling back in her head as she felt her third earth-shattering orgasm rush through her. Her juices sprayed the sheets as her tongue hung from her mouth. Naruto let out a primitive growl before he unleashed a torrent of cum within his lover. That was amazing, Eri-chan, he panted while he continued to grip her hips. Eri let out an unintelligible moan in response. When asked if she was up for round 2, She merely nodded a come-drunk response. Lemon end. The following morning, the two genin made their way down the stairs to the hotel restaurant for breakfast. Aries post-sex glow bringing a knowing smirk from their teammates. So how was it, Eri-chan? Ami asked with a teasing grin. I don't know what you're talking about. Eri managed to stutter. Her own legs were still a bit weak from the previous night that had left her unconscious, before it was through. Oh, if nothing happened then, you won't mind a morning workout of 100 weighted laps around the village walls. Yugao smirked. Please no. The soul is willing, but the flesh is weak and spongy, she begged, clutching her sensei's top. Kami, what did he do to you? Ami asked. Eri got a dazed look remembering the night before. What didn't he do? 5 Naruto-kuns who all share the same senses. She mumbled to herself. Yugao looked at Naruto, who only rubbed his head, and chuckled. Anyway, let's eat. I have a few hours to join you guys for training today. At lunch, I'll be going to eat with Temari-chan, before going to meet with Raza. So you did come here just to pick up a new girlfriend? Yugao teased, while giving him a playful pout. Naruto merely smirked, and leaned in next to her ear. Careful, Yugao-chan. You just saw what I did to the last girl who made that claim, he whispered, nipping her ear. Yugao shivered slightly, before clearing her throat. Well, seeing as you have so much energy left, I think we should eat and get to training before your day gets too busy, she said, trying to change the subject. All right, Yugao-chan, but that training excuse is only good for a couple more months, he smirked before ordering a stack of pancakes. After a light training session, which still resulted in the half-hearted death glares from his teammates, Naruto made his way to one of the local diners to meet with Temari. Good afternoon, Temari-chan. You're looking positively beautiful as always. You can stop kissing up, Naruto-kun. You already got the date. She smiled as she rose to hug him. Even when we're competing against each other in the exams, I still plan to tell you every time I see you how beautiful you are, he replied, kissing her cheek. You keep up that charm, and I'll have to kidnap you and keep you as my own personal blonde boy toy. Temari purred. Careful, Temari-chan. There's several high-ranking kunoichi in Konoha who might have something to say about that, he joked, kissing her hand. Now kidnapping you and taking you back to Konoha as my love slave. You might have to fight my father and brothers over that. She grinned back. Haven't you heard the news, Mari-chan? Naruto Uzumaki is a one-man army. One light lunch and much flirting later, Naruto Uzumaki once again stood in front of the Kazekage and his family. I must say, Naruto-kun, I seem to be meeting with you more than I do most of my citizens. Raza chuckled. Well, I could see us being chess partners like Hokage Jiji and Old Man Danzo, Naruto quipped. So where are we on permission from Jiji about me tampering with a potentially unstable seal matrix? He has approved this as an S-rank mission for an allied nation, and even offered to pay your fee himself as part of your helping out with Suna's revitalization. I'm also now glad I didn't let you write the request letter. Don't worry, Raza, Jiji trusts me. He knows I wouldn't mess with a seal this dangerous unless I knew what I was doing. Now there is going to be 2 parts to this process. The first part will be me altering the seal in order to allow your son to sleep. The second part will be for me to use my own Juice chakra to enter your son's seal and separate the beast's spirit from that of its original Jinchuriki. You mean Bunpaku? Raza asked. No, there was one before him. According to Kyubi, it was a man named Masaki. Bunpaku, being a monk, managed to help him fight against the spirit of Masaki, but in the years since Bunpaku's death, the spirit has managed to regain its control. Once Kyubi and I separate the 2 spirits, he should go back to being the kind, if not childish spirit he once was. Since you seem to know so much, can you tell me why Gaara refers to Ichibi as mother? When was the Ichibi sealed inside of Gaara? While he was in his mother's womb, why? My guess is that a part of your wife's soul imprinted itself on the seal. Much like Masaki, The spirit of Gaara's mother has most likely been influencing a chibi to protect your son. Now we're wasting time. Gaara, show me your seal. Gaara nuded and raised his shirt, revealing the seal on his back. No offense to whoever did this, but it looks like you strapped a brush to a dog and let him go to town. Kankuro looked as if he was about to say something, when a hand from his father stopped him. Can you fix it? He asked. Yes, but it will take me a fat minute to undo the shaky line work and rewrite the matrix for a more stable hold, he said, unsealing his supplies. I'm going to place a paralysis seal on you to keep any kind of twitching from happening. Gaara nodded, laying across the couch. Naruto placed the seal on his back and began his work. The rest of the Subakuno family watched on in awe at the fast and clean brush strokes that seemed to just flow into each other. Once he finished the intricate patchwork, the blonde flew through a series of over 100 hand seals. Fuinjutsu, reparation of broken bridges, he said, slamming his hand into Gaara's back. The young redhead felt as if the weight of 1,000 mountains had been lifted from his shoulders before he collapsed into a deep slumber. What did you do to him? Kankuro yelled. You try not sleeping for 13 years and see how you feel, Naruto commented. Now I'll be right back, he said, channeling some of his Bijuu's chakra into his hand, before he too collapsed on top of Gaara. Inside of Gaara's seal, Naruto was surprised, as he didn't think he could find a mindscape more depressing than his. The entire world was colored gray, covered in jagged rocky mountains. Why is his mindscape like this? For someone raised by the trees, being encased in steel is one's hell. For someone raised by the desert, a cold area devoid of sand is the same, Kyubi said, walking next to Naruto. Ha ha ha, brother. Come here to bring me a snack, Shikaka cackled, eyeing Naruto. No, he said simply, before his tails shot forward and into Shikaku. The tanuki screamed as he felt himself being ripped apart. He tried to fight it, every ounce of his strength. Naruto wasn't doing so well. The killer intent of Tubiju was taking its toll on him. He felt as if he was going to collapse. That's when something snapped within him, and golden chains covered in hook-like barbs shot from his back and wrapped themselves around the tanuki's form, holding him in place. Shikaku screamed as he felt the green orb being removed from his body. Naruto, quick! Stab it with one of your chains, Kyubi screamed. Naruto turned his attention to the orb before it disappeared. Naruto smiled before the world around the two of them faded. Naruto groaned as he stood up, holding his head. Tell Gaara when he wakes up, he needs to imagine a more suitable environment for the Ichibi. He'll probably be out for a couple of days. I destroyed the evil spirit, but left the spirit of his mother in the seal. Part of my alterations feeds some of the chakra from the Ichibi to her soul. This will allow her to continue to watch over him and eventually inhabit her own separate space in his mindscape when he gains more experience entering it. I'll be in town tonight to rest, before my team heads back to Konoha in the morning. If you have any questions, come to my hotel. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I will send a message to your Hokage and let him know that the mission was completed without incident, Raza said as he stood and shook the young man's hand. Thank you, Raza, Naruto said, shaking his hand back before returning to his hotel. Once in the hotel, Naruto created a shadow clone. All right, dispel and get the word to Naruko-chan. I'd like Fu-chan to look into those chains and get me anything she can on them. Make sure Naruko-chan tells her there's a foot rub and a hot rock treatment in it for her. The clone saluted and dispelled itself to deliver the message. 3 days later, the team returned to Konoha. While the girls went home to relax in their own beds, Naruto made his way to the Hokage Tower to give his formal report. Danzo, don't tell me you came here just for my mission report, the blonde joked as he entered the room. Well, I was quite intrigued by your Fuinjutsu knowledge, especially after Hiruzen told me you rewrote a Jinchuriki seal. Fu also asked for information on the chains you used in the seal. I figured it would be best you heard about them from us. Being the closest to a seal master we have, would you do the honors of activating a privacy seal? Naruto nodded, activating the seal. So what is it that is so sensitive? You couldn't tell it to someone with a seal meant to keep her from speaking of things you don't approve of? Danzo raised an eyebrow at the boy's statement. Don't act surprised, old man. You said it yourself, I am the closest thing to a seal master we have, and I've talked to Fuchan enough times to notice the seal on her tongue. Now what is it you two wanted to tell me? While we can't tell you about your father until you make Chunin, due to his own wishes, we can tell you about your mother, Hiruzen said. Minato Namikaze, Naruto said, surprising both men. Come on, Gigi, even for a village Jinchuriki you always took too much interest in me. You told me that the Yondaime sealed the QB in me the night I was born, that my parents were killed that same night. Knowing the Yondaime, he wouldn't ask someone else to seal the QB into their child if he wouldn't do the same. If all of that wasn't enough evidence, Naruto walked over to the wall and picked up the picture of Minato, holding it next to his face. Hello. Genetics may as well have tattooed the words, I'm Minato's kid, across my forehead. The ever-stoic Danzo did something that no one had seen from him in 30 years. He laughed. He's right, Hiruzen. Well then, I suppose there's no harm in telling you your mother's name. She was Kushina Uzumaki, one of the survivors who managed to escape the Uzushio tragedy of the Second Shinobi War. The chakra chains you manifested are a Kekkei Genkai of your clan. Naruto, it's Kyuubi. I have a way to get your friend Sasuke out of the CRA if he wants it. Just follow my lead, Kyuubi said from within his mind. Well, while we're on the subject of clans, Sasuke Uchiha wants out of the CRA, Naruto said sternly. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but even coming from you that is impossible. Sasuke is the last genetic carrier of the Sharingan in our village. His participation is mandatory. If there were a second carrier, like his older brother, things may be optional. Danzo explained, he didn't want it known that Mikoto Uchiha was actually in a coma in a root hospital unless she actually woke up. Then we have a deal. You see, a little-known lesser Kekkei Genkai of the Uzumaki clan was our adaptation. That's why my bones are so tough. With every time they're broken, they get tougher. The same goes for my muscles and my abilities in Fuinjutsu and Ninjutsu. If a Sharingan were to be implanted in my eye socket, Kyuubi would speed up the healing process, and I would assimilate it into my DNA. One Sharingan would allow me to use the Sharingan in both eyes, turn it on and off and pass it on to my children. Naruto explained. If you don't believe me, you can ask Tsunade-chan to see the Uzumaki logs Mitoba-chan would have left in the Senju compound. I'm sure they'll corroborate my claim. Naruto-kun, I hope you understand. If we do this, and Sasuke-kun opts out of the CRA, with you being already a mandated participant, we're going to have to increase the number of women. You'll have to have a total of 9 wives. My participation was never optional. With this route Sasuke's is, it will mean he and Ami-chan can have a quiet, happy life together when he retires to run the clan. I'll do my duty for the village. The question is, can you get me a Sharingan? Yes. Get your affairs in order with your team and meet us at this location this evening. Tsunade-chan will perform the operation, Hiruzen said, dismissing him. Once Naruto left, Danzo turned to Hiruzen. That boy always finds a way to win. That he does. Even when the rest of us see a lost battle, he looks at the map and sees what we couldn't. Hiruzen replied, taking a long drag of his pipe. You do realize 9 wives means a minimum of 9 miniature Narutos hanging off your beard, Danzo joked. First you're laughing and now you're making jokes. Are you sure you're the same Danzo? You're going to do what? Eri yelled. After leaving the Hokage Tower, Naruto had sent his clones out to set up a meeting between himself, his team, and Sasuke. Now the 3 teens and 1 Jonin were once again soaking in the Uchiha hot spring, though it wasn't currently as relaxing as Naruto had hoped. You heard me, Eri-chan. The Hokage has set up a procedure to replace my eye with that of a Uchiha. Now I think you're overreacting. Especially since I didn't have to tell any of you except Sasuke about the procedure. Thanks to my healing factor, I'd be fine by the next morning, and thanks to my Uzumaki bloodline, my eyes will still be blue when my Sharingan aren't active, meaning you'd never notice in the first place, and given that you don't know how many girls I'm mandated with the CRA, you wouldn't have even noticed the additional numbers. So why do it? Ami asked. I'm already mandated to be in the CRA. You and Sasuke want to live a quiet life with just the two of you. If me doing this can help the both of you live the life you want, I don't mind doing it, and if someday you two do find another girl you want to welcome into your relationship, the option is still open. Naruto smiled. It would be nice, you know? I'm planning to retire as a Chunin after a short stint in the Cypher division. It would be nice to know if something happened to Sasuke-kun, there'd be someone around to help with the children. That's what nannies are for, Sasuke quipped. Also, once I'm Hokage, Sasuke should be a Jonin. At that point, I'm going to ask him to step down from active duty and take up reinstituting the Konoha police force. I feel like having an active patrolling police force who knows the faces of the people in their sectors would help to deter spies, especially if that officer had the Sharingan and could remember the faces of every person he passes. Naruto explained. It would be nice to actually be around to watch my children grow up. I always thought of Itachi more as my father than my actual father. It hurt a lot more when he had to take long missions with his Jonin team or with the Umbu. I think I'd prefer to have a job I could come home from at around the same time my kids were getting out of school. Except for weeks where you piss me off and I make you work graveyard. Naruto grinned, punching his arm playfully. Ami smirked and moved over to Naruto's side, her breast pressed against his arm and her head on his shoulder. Naruto-kun, as an orphan with a good heart, I know you wouldn't do anything to take away my baby's time with their father, she said, giving him her best puppy dog eyes. Eri caught on to the little game and moved over to Sasuke's side, getting into the same position. And you know how much weight would be on Naruto-kun's shoulders. You wouldn't intentionally do anything to add to that stress by doing things to annoy him, she cooed in his ear. Naruto and Sasuke both turned their attention to Yugao looking for help, only to find her whistling and staring off in the other direction. Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other with a shared thought. Evil, manipulative women. Later that evening in a root black site, Naruto laid on the operating table while Tsunade performed the transplant. It was fortunate, to say the least, that one of the eyes root had managed to recover from the massacre was that of a Mangekyo user, meaning Naruto would have access to the Mangekyo Sharingan, and with Kyuubi's healing factor, he wouldn't have to worry about blindness, though it would still cause intense pain to use the Mangekyo's abilities for a prolonged amount of time, and it would take longer for Kyuubi to heal his eyes based on how long he had to use it at one point in time. The next morning, Naruto awoke to the feeling of his head laid on something soft. Somehow his pillow seemed to be the perfect combination of soft and firm. Naruto moaned in his sleep, burying his face deeper into the silk-like pillow. I know you're still sleepy, Naruto-kun, but you have to get up and get ready for the day, a soothing voice spoke to him. Looking up from his still half-asleep state, Naruto saw a lock of familiar orange hair hanging in front of him. Fu-chan, what are you doing here? Fu smiled down at him, running her fingers through his messy bedhead. Danzo-sama asked me to watch over you while you recovered. At first I was simply sitting in the chair beside you, but when I saw the way you were tossing and turning, I decided to let you sleep in my lap. The minute I put you there, you stopped tossing and started sleeping peacefully. Well, at first I had a dream I was fighting in a war. Madara Uchiha was there, and so was this completely white woman with long silver hair and bunny ears. There was also a guy who was half black, half white with like a Venus flytrap on his neck. After a bit, though, it shifted. I was older, my hair hung over my headband. I still wore it even with my Hokage hat and cloak. I was surrounded by a bunch of kids, all with different hair colors. They were calling me Tuchan and laughing. Gigi was there too, with a few hanging off his beard. Even Konohamaru was there. He was standing next to Hanabi Hyuga, and she was holding her swollen belly. Fu smiled, combing her fingers through the blonde's hair. It seems you're expecting great confrontation in the future, but you seem to know you'll make it through them and gain your own family because of it. Thanks, Fuchan, I needed that. Now, as much as I love laying on your heavenly thighs, what do you say we go bug Ayam-chan and get some ramen? I'd love to, Naruto-kun, but I should get back and report to Danzo-sama. He and Hokage-sama will want to know that you woke up. It's Sunday, let the old men sleep in. Now I haven't seen you for over a week, so I am going to treat you to breakfast, and then to that promised foot rub. Naruto said, giving her a pout. One day I'll learn to say no to that look, she muttered. All right, Naruto-kun, let's get going. As the two approached the ramen stand, they heard the sounds of kissing and heavy panting, thinking some kids had broken into the stand for a makeout party. Opening the flaps, Naruto was slightly surprised to see Ayam making out with Kagome. Well, what do we have here? Naruto grinned, unsealing a camera from his pocket and snapping a picture. And Naruto-kun, you're back. Ayam stuttered. A deep blush spread across her face. Yes, though I doubt you two noticed I was gone given how deeply your tongues were buried in each other's mouths. On the plus side, I think I found my next holiday card. He smirked, resealing the camera. Or at least the portrait for my fireplace. Ayam's blush deepened as Kagome laughed. Naruto-kun, you little pervert. If you wanted to see a girl-on-girl show, you could have just asked. You do pay for my Sundays after all. Kagome teased. Though since Ayam-chan and I started dating, I have stopped taking clients. I've moved to only doing topless waitressing at the bar. The money isn't as good, but I prefer it to having to sleep with anyone besides my Ayam-chan. If you're looking for work, I could use a maid. The conversion set up on my apartment should be done by now, meaning that there will be plenty more space to clean. I'd include your rent and board as part of your contract. So the only thing you'll have to buy with your paycheck is food. I'll throw in extra if you wear the maid costume. Naruto offered. Kagome giggled as Ayam looked at him and smiled. He was still teasing, but she knew he was being genuine. Kagome wouldn't take a handout, so knowing that part of her contract was playing to Naruto's childhood fantasies of being a wealthy business made it seem more like a job offer to a retired working girl, rather than a handout to an old friend. Naruto-kun, that seems awfully generous for cleaning one apartment building once a week, Kagome said. Then let's make it that and the Uzumaki compound. I'll be taking it over publicly in the near future. Gigi and Old Man Danzo told me about my mother due to the fact that my CRA will be official once I make Chunin. I went by there a few weeks back and found my chakra was already coded into the system. If you two ever decide to move in together, I'd take you on as vassals of the Uzumaki clan. Your house would be the apartment complex I live in now. Ayam-chan can still help her dad at the ramen stand. As vassals, I'd actually fund a full-blown restaurant since I know you two have always wanted to expand the business. As for Kagome-chan, she'd simply be responsible for cleaning the main house and any unoccupied houses in the compound. Of course, being vassals, you'd both get a stipend every month to do with as you see fit. That seems like a good deal to me, Naruto-kun. You've always been family to me, might as well make it official. Ayam smiled. Same goes for me, but does this mean we have to call you Naruto-sama now? Kagome teased, poking his cheek. You do, and I'll exercise my right as the clan head to put you over my knee. Naruto jabbed back. I guess we should have kept a better eye on who our Naruto-kun was hanging around with. He seems to have grown up to be a kinky little shinobi. You know, Naruto-kun, if this is supposed to be a date, you shouldn't spend all your time flirting with other women. Fu teased, a smirk on her lips. Et2 Fu-chan? Naruto sniffled, looking at her. That look should be labeled a kenjutsu, Fu muttered, hugging him, to which Kagome and Ayam nodded in agreement. You know you love my puppy eyes, Fu-chan. He smiled, kissing her cheek. That's besides the point, Fu said, turning her head. After a light breakfast and a promise to meet up for dinner, and her massage before Naruto finished packing for his trip. The blonde genin made his way to the training grounds for his team's meeting. Alright squad, since Naruto-kun already seemed to figure out that there will be a written exam during the Chunin exams. We'll be spending today at the library studying in the shinobi section. Field tactics, advanced geometry, politics, and chain of command. I don't know the exact specifics of the test, as that's only known by the proctor. Which means we're going to have to study all relative information we can get our hands on today. Now thanks to our intense training, you two have learned the shadow clone technique as well, but I'm limiting you to 2 clones each. Naruto-kun's healing factor is one of the only reasons he can handle the mental strain of using a massive number of clones. That, and his experience with the technique. Yugao explained. I'd also like to add that using too many clones when you're not used to it can make the information a lot more fuzzy in the beginning. Your mind needs to get used to sorting experience from multiple sources at once. It's why it took me several months to even realize the experience share function of the clones. I was used to spamming at least 100 clones in combat, so my mind couldn't process all the information. It wasn't until I limited it to 20 or so clones helping with the bridge that I was actually able to recall the information. It's why I limit myself to 100 clones a day for training, and why they pop in 4-man intervals. Naruto explained. There you have it from the shadow clone expert. I'd also like to add, while you two can make 5 clones each. Making 2 clones each will allow them to last longer, and be able to study their subjects more thoroughly. Yugao said, leading the 3 genin to the library. Once Naruto finished his studies, he returned home to begin preparing for his dinner date with Fu. Setting the table, he placed 2 candles on either side of the table, a white tablecloth, and 2 wine glasses. Once he was sure everything was perfect, he moved to the kitchen to begin cooking. He wanted to go all out for the girl who had done so much for him in the past several months, even if he knew she mostly only did it out of duty. She didn't need to do things like going out to eat with him or soothing him when he was having a nightmare. It made him feel like he was more than just a mission to her. When Fu arrived at the designated time, she was shocked to see Naruto plating 2 fresh grilled steaks, a bowl of homemade garlic mashed potatoes, and a bowl of rolls. Welcome to Restaurant de Naruto. Please take a seat, he said, pulling out her chair. Thank you, Naruto-kun, but why did you go through all of this trouble? I would have been fine with a simple dinner, Fu asked. Fu-chan, you have been amazing to me, and before you say anything about just following orders. You were never ordered to eat with me, you were never ordered to lay my head in your lap and soothe me when I was having a nightmare. You don't have to check on me between assignments, but you do. You do so much for me, Fu-chan. I wanted to do something for you to show you how much you mean to me. He smiled as he poured her a glass of wine. Fu smiled, looking at him from across the table. Thank you, Naruto-kun. You'll never know how much this means to me. You don't get a lot of emotional connections en route. If he didn't know you'd tear the village apart looking for me, Danzo-sama would have reassigned me after he saw you in my lap. He told me that you've kept your oath to the village, and that you were in line to be the next Hokage if Hokage-sama didn't retire, before you had time to accumulate Jonin experience. He didn't want you to be mad at him before you took office. Well, in my experience, Danzo is a smart man. He also wants the same thing I want. What is that? Fu asked curiously. The safety and prosperity of the leaf. The people of Konoha are the leaves of the great tree, basking in the light of the will of fire. We shinobi are its branches, holding up and protecting the leaves. The Hokage is its trunk, the pillar that holds the village. Root is the unseen infrastructure that keeps the village safe from the enemies our public shinobi can't protect it from, whether for political reasons or simply by gathering information on threats we haven't seen yet. That's very insightful, Naruto-kun. I hope you don't mind if I mention it to Danzo-sama. He'll be happy to hear you share his philosophy on the leaf. I trust you to know what to tell Danzo and what should be considered personal. Naruto smiled. After finishing their meal, which included a nice cupcake dessert, the 2 shinobi retired to the living room, where Naruto took his seat in front of Fu before removing her sandals. I apologize for the smell. I was asked to run a message to a nearby village before coming here today. I ran at top speeds so that I wasn't late. Fuch said, apologizing. It's all right, Fuchan, I don't mind. This is the perfect time for me to do it. It'll help you relax some. Naruto smiled as he began rubbing her feet. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I know I'll be stripped to my underwear for the hot rock part of this massage. If I fall asleep during the massage, and you want to move me to the bed, please feel free to just sleep beside me. Are you sure, Fuchan? I don't want you to feel like you have to. I'm sure, Naruto-kun. You've already slept in my lap. I don't mind if you just put me in the bed and sleep with me. I think we've long gotten to the point where we're used to each other's bodies and comfortable enough to sleep together. Naruto smiled and kissed her toes. Thank you, Fuchan. Fu let out a small giggle before quickly covering her mouth. Oh, it seems someone is ticklish. Naruto grinned. I am not, you just surprised me is all, she said defensively. Oh, then this time I'm giving you fair warning, Naruto said, before he blew a raspberry on her soul. The action caused the normally stoic woman to burst out into a fit of giggles. Naruto grinned and continued the action, pulling another series of giggles from his partner. Do you surrender? Never, she said through fits of giggles. The blonde grinned and moved forward, tickling her ribs, while he blew more raspberries on her stomach. Surrender, and I'll finish the massage, he said, tickling her armpits. Fine, fine, I surrender, she squealed, wrapping her arms around him. Naruto smiled and gave her a kiss on the cheek before moving for her to strip and lie on the couch. Once she was ready, he proceeded to work the knots out of her back. The following morning, Naruto awoke with his face buried in something soft and squishy. Looking up, he realized that his bedmate had turned in her sleep and shoved his face into her heavenly valley of cleavage. He wished he could stay wrapped in her arms the entire day, but he had a report due with the Hokage and Danzo this morning, before he left for his vacation with Tsunade. Discreetly making a shadow clone and substituting himself with it, Naruto made his way to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for him and his companion. Fu groaned as she turned over in the bed, the sweet smell of pancakes filling her nose. She looked down, before it dawned on her that the Naruto cuddling into her chest wasn't the original. Don't dispel yet, just go about your morning studies, she said. The clone nodded and grabbed an advanced Fuinjutsu book from the bookshelf to study. Meanwhile, Fu had gotten dressed in her normal uniform, which had somehow been magically cleaned. He doesn't need a maid when he's got an entire house staff for free when it comes to his shadow clones, she thought as she moved behind her lover. Fuchan, I know you're a trained umbu, but you can't sneak up on me. Naruto smiled as he turned and shoved a sausage link into her mouth. Besides, it's not good to sneak up on a shinobi. Fu swallowed the link and smirked. Naruto-kun, I know we shared a few close moments yesterday. However, that doesn't mean you can just go shoving your meat in my mouth whenever you want. Was that a joke out of the ever-stoic Root Captain? Naruto chuckled, kissing her cheek. Now sit, breakfast is almost ready. You've got to get to work, and I've got a meeting with Gigi and Old Man Danzo before I leave for my trip. Alright, but I'm borrowing your Rias clone after office hours to cuddle with. Last night was the best sleep I've had in years, she said, taking her seat at the table. It would be my pleasure, Fuchan, he said, serving the woman her breakfast. After a warm goodbye and Naruto's meeting with the old men of the village, he was now awaiting the arrival of his date for the next week or so. Tsunade-chan, you look beautiful as ever. You got the date already, brat. You don't need to keep kissing ass. She smirked as she approached him in her usual attire. If I had my way, I'd be kissing more than just your ass. He smiled, taking her hand as they began their walk towards. I wish there was a less tiring way to get from place to place. Most countries, and especially the smaller towns in those countries don't have the infrastructure for trains. Yes, it is a pain, especially when you're between towns, and it starts to rain. I currently have a blood clone leading a research team that's focused on trying to compact the steam engine of a train into a single vehicle. Please tell me it'll be done before I'm dead, Tsunade joked. Given our Uzumaki vitality, I'm sure you'll have many years to enjoy it. You're still young after all, he said, kissing her cheek. The action caused her to blush. Though I'm leaning more towards increasing the power of the internal combustion engine we have in the form of outboard boat motors. They start a lot faster than steam engines and require less maintenance. I take it there's a drawback though? Naruto sighed, nodding. The lack of gasoline production, given the fact that most of it is used for the boats, and only the small ones at that. Meaning that there's not much, and what there is used mainly in the few areas that have small boats. I take it you have a solution though? She asked. In the short time she had known the boy, she had realized something. His ideas seemed random, but the execution was always planned out to include every variable. Yes, I've been diverting whatever profits I can spare to Nami and Suna. Nami already has a few small offshore rigs in the area, while my clones have found large pockets of oil in Suna's territory. The faster the vehicles are created, the faster Suna's economy will bounce back. Have you thought of a design? Something with a bed. It would double as passenger seating, but its main function would be hauling supplies and materials. For instance, a farmer could load the back of the vehicle with their produce and bring it to the storage area from the fields. It would also help merchants transport larger amounts of goods through places where horses can't travel through, like mountains and such. I'd love to see the prototype when you get it working. I'll take you with me on a ride as soon as it's up and running, he said, as they entered their hotel room for the evening. On that note, I'm going to take a shower so we can hit the casino, she said, entering one of the bathrooms. When Naruto exited the second bathroom, he could swear he heard the concrete of the floor base crack from where his jaw had hit it. In front of him, Tsunade was fastening her necklace around her neck, her generous curves encased in an emerald green dress that stopped just above her breast. The tops of her breasts were encased in a sleeveless mesh that was attached to the main fabric of the dress, as well as the matching collar that encircled her neck. Her signature heels were still strapped to her feet. Naruto-kun, if you keep staring, the Chunin exams will pass, before we even make it downstairs. I can't help it, Tsuchan, you're beautiful. It's so rare I get to see you in something that shows off your amazing curves. In fact, he activated his Sharingan, memorizing every curve. I know I didn't need to do that, but I wanted this image burned into my brain for the rest of my life. Tsunade blushed as she looked away. Shut up, Baka. Don't say things like that. Let me make it up to you then. I believe I mentioned some gambling. Let's go hit the slot machines, and then maybe do some dancing, he said, taking her hand. Naruto's good luck seemed to be the perfect counterbalance to Tsunade's bad luck, as his winnings had managed to keep them ahead, despite her constant losses. Though Tsunade did grill him about it, convinced he had to be using some kind of trick to win. Now, though, the two of them were enjoying a nice slow dance in the bar. Thanks to his last growth spurt, he now stood a couple of inches over her. One arm was placed on her shoulder, and the other clasped in his own hand. The two of them swayed gently to the music, as his free hand cupped her waist. Thank you for coming out with me tonight, Tsuchan, he whispered in her ear. Thank you for treating me like Tsunade, and not one of the legendary Sannin, or the last of the Senju. Trust me, I know what it's like to be treated differently because of your title. He smiled and kissed her. Naruto sighed as he stretched. It was now the morning of the Chunin exams, and he was both excited and annoyed. Excited because he would become a Chunin and be able to rebuild his clan. Annoyed because he was told he'd have to filter marriage requests once his name was made public at the finals. The first test had been simple. His team had used their newfound knowledge to help them pass, and he had mixed one of his shadow clones in with the proctors to get him the answers when he went to the bathroom. Now the boys' team was standing in front of the Forest of Death, a place the three of them had gotten well acquainted with during their training. They had actually been the first team there, arriving 2 hours before the scheduled time so that Naruto could speak with Anko. "What do you want, brat? Come to hit on me and make me part of your harem?" She smirked, gesturing to her body. "I don't think you can handle this." "Not exactly. I've been studying a lot of Fuinjutsu. I'm actually higher in the ranks than Jiraiya is. He studies mostly chakra sealing methods. I've been studying the spectrum. I'd like to take a crack at your curse seal, if you let me look at the matrix." Anko sighed and lowered her trench coat. "Don't go crazy over it, kid. I've pretty much given up on it." Naruto activated his Sharingan and began scanning over the area. "I see, so that's what he's done." He scowled, tracing a finger over it, causing Anko to shiver. "What is it? Did you figure it out?" she asked hopefully. "It seems that he's layered several seals together. One of them binds a piece of his soul to you, likely an attempt to make your body more compatible with his for when he tries to jump into your body. The second layer draws natural energy when it activates. That's likely where the boost in power comes from. It's basically a bastard version of Senjutsu. That explains the demonic transformation. The person using it hasn't mastered the art, meaning the person can't balance it properly. It's also why, according to the majority of reports from his notes, the seal has a low success rate. The person would have to have a high amount of chakra to keep the natural energy from overwhelming them. It's why most wind up as an irreversible monster. The third layer is a new take on a slave seal. Rather than making a person a mindless drone with no drive to get stronger, it makes them want to seek him out for more power, becoming more loyal to him the more they use it. The final layer is a double redundancy seal, meaning that the person would have to destroy all 4 layers at once, or the redundancy seal would activate and repair the broken parts of the seal faster than someone could break them. "So you can't fix it," Anko sighed, lifting her trench coat. "I never said that. I'll have my training clone get a crew of shadow clones together. They'll go over the different layers of the seal and design a key seal that will destroy all 4 layers at once. The process is extremely painful, and you'll be out for several days after. I've lived with this pain for years. If you can do this, I'll take whatever pain that comes from it." "How long do you think it'll take you to do this?" "I should have it ready before the finals. I'll send a clone to find you when the time comes," he said. "If you get this thing off of me, I'll do whatever you want," she said excitedly. "Well, I'm looking for more vassals for my clan. It would help me with rebuilding my clan. You see, the council doesn't work the way most people think. For every so many civilians and civilian shinobi, there is one representative. Shinobi clans are similar. The clan head gets 1 vote for every 25 clan members they have. This also includes vassals. Currently I have 2, so having a third who has clan protection and access to our resources would help give me a larger vote." "I take it that there's something I'd have to give you? What do I have to have sex with you whenever you want?" she asked suspiciously. "No, nothing like that. 10% of your mission pay will be diverted to the clan treasury like a normal clan member. In the event of a dispute between clans, you'd support our clan. In the unlikely event that the Uzumaki clan leaves the village, you'd come with us. I can request you as a bodyguard when I leave the village on clan business. Any jutsu you develop would be placed in the clan vault, and in the event of an invasion, your first priority would be to protect the clan property. However, the security seals on the property won't make this necessary." "That sounds pretty sweet for a vassal. Why wouldn't more shinobi become vassals?" Ami asked. "Most like the autonomy of not being tied to someone else's clan. There's also the vassal limit. A clan can only have 5 vassals per 50 members. Meaning, with the inclusion of Anko-chan here, I'd only be allowed to offer vassalhood to 2 more people, with the current number of clan members being 1. With my total number of mandatory wives under the CRA being 9, I'd still need about 41 more clan members to have another 5 vassals. It keeps a clan from obtaining a large amount of vassals to boost their voting power." As they were speaking, Fu dropped down in a kneeling position. "Naruto-kun, I'm sorry to interrupt your exams, but Danzo-sama has sent a scroll for you, she said, handing it to him. Thank you, Fuchan. I greatly appreciate this, he said. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Now I must return to my partals. I'll be seeing you after the second exam, before you start your month of training for the finals, she said, before leaving. Naruto opened the scrolls and scanned the contents. Interesting. What is it? Eri asked. I'll be leaving you two with a blood clone at the end of the first day. I'll have to take care of some clan business inside the forest at that time. And before you say anything, Anko-chan, I won't be leaving the forest, he said, shutting down the woman's coming objection. After a few hours later, the test had begun, and Naruto's team was rushing through the forest. Naruto-kun, have you noticed yet? Ami asked. Yeah, that Kiri team has been tracking us since the beginning of the test. I take it they're after Kubikiri Hocho. There's a clearing up ahead. Let's pull them in there, he said, getting a nod from his team. Once the three teams had entered the area, Naruto activated his hidden mist technique, and the three put on their goggles. The goggles resembled the ones Naruto had worn as a child, but they had been augmented with seals that allowed the three to see through his mist. Arrogant leaf bastard, the female voice yelled. It's not enough that you stole Kubikiri Hocho, but now you believe you can defeat us with our village's signature technique? I did not steal anything. Naruto's calm voice echoed around them. I killed Zabuza Momochi and am fulfilling his wish to carry on his legacy. This blade was made by the Uzumaki and gifted to the village of Kiri by us as a sign of friendship. I am simply taking it back. Consider it compensation for your village turning it and the other 6 swords against us during the Second Shinobi War, he said, before appearing behind one of the genin, his blade separating his head from his body. Zabuza was a traitor and a coward. He attempted to side with the bloodline scum and assassinate Mizukichi-sama. The girl yelled, not yet aware of the death of her teammate. Ah yes, you're Mizukichi, the man who preaches equality by killing off the bloodline users, while he himself uses the power of the Sanbai to enforce his rhetoric, Naruto said, as Ami moved behind the girl's other teammate. Her kunai wrapped around him to stab him in the chest. This time the girl heard and turned, but it was too late. Her face met the burning fury of Naruto's Sharingan. I will let you live. Your team is gone now. I'll be taking your scroll. I want you to go back to your Mizukichi. Tell him that the whirlpool remembers. He can send whoever he likes, but he will never get his hands on this blade again, and should I meet him on the battlefield, I will kill him, he said, before trapping her in the Tsukuyomi. As the mist lifted, Naruto looked around at the carnage. I have a feeling I'll be in the bingo book when this is said and done. Kiri will likely offer a reward for anyone who can kill me and return their blade, Naruto said, as he took the scroll from the decapitated man. It seems our luck had held up. Let's find a place to hunker down. I'll leave a blood clone to back you two up, while I take care of my business, he said, walking in the directions of one of the caves the team had used for camping during their training trips in the forest. It had already been equipped with security seals and a chakra barrier. Exiting the area, Naruto made his way towards the direction of a strangely familiar chakra signature. He already knew who the signature belonged to. After all, it was his own family on the scene. Arriving on the scene, Naruto was met with the sight of a young redhead cowering in the dirt, as an overgrown bear stood over her ready to strike. Scram Oso, this one's not for you. You can take the other 2 if you want, but this one is mine. The bear let out a low growl in response, only to stop when Naruto produced a thick cut of meat from his sleeve. Heavy marbling, your favorite, he teased, waving the meat back and forth. All yours if you let me keep this one. The bear huffed and swiped the meat from his hand, before wandering back off into the tree line. Don't mind him. He's just grouchy when new people wander into the forest. What's your name? He asked, as if he didn't already know. Karen Uzumaki, the girl said, turning her head to hide her blush. Well, Karen Uzumaki, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Nice to meet you. Karen looked up at the boy, a range of emotions running across her face: sadness, loss, joy, and love. Your Aunt Kushina's son? You knew my mother? Naruto asked, slightly confused. She couldn't have been more than a year older than him, which meant that she would have still been an infant herself when his mother passed. Not personally, no, but my mother grew up with your mother in Yuzu before they both left to avoid its destruction. My mother used to tell me before she died, if you're ever in trouble, run to Kanaha and find your Aunt Kushina. I knew I couldn't make it on my own, so I've been biding my time until either I made enough money as a genin to resign and pay for passage to Konoha, or the exams were held here and I could come ask for help. I wasn't aware of Aunt Kushina's death until I arrived in town and asked a red-eyed woman about her. She said sadly, "It's okay, cousin," Naruto said, as he kneeled down to hug her. "You're safe now. One of my clones will show you the tunnel that leads from the forest directly to the Uzumaki compound. Once there, you can take any of the branch houses as your own and get a shower in. My clone will go shopping for you and bring you back enough supplies to last until the end of the exams. If you need anything during that time, just tell her, and she'll go get it for you. After the second exam, I'll talk to Gigi and Old Man Danzo about having you send a letter of resignation to Kusa. Since you're still a genin, they won't be able to deny it, and I can offer you asylum as a member of the Uzumaki clan. You'll be able to live in one of the branch houses inside the compound." "Are you sure, Naruto-kun? I wouldn't want to intrude or put you in a bad position," she said, in a slightly timid voice. "Think nothing of it, Karen-chan. We're family, it's what we do," he said, escorting her to the tunnel where, thanks to his clone communication system, Naruko was waiting for him. "This is Naruko-chan. She's a blood clone. I have henge into a female version of myself so she can act as a sort of officer over other clones. She'll escort you to the compound and get you set up. I'll be there as soon as I can." "All right, Naruto-kun. Thank you," she said, kissing his cheek before she took off with the clone into the tunnel. On his way back to the cave, Naruto was surprised to stumble upon Sasuke. "Hey team, how's it going?" "Hey Dobe, I haven't been able to find the scroll I need. What about you?" he asked, activating his Sharingan to ensure he was talking to the real Sasuke, and that there were no enemies hiding in a genjutsu around them. "Yeah, our team has both of our scrolls, and now an extra one, since Oso killed one of the Kusa teams." "Oso?" Oso is the name of one of the giant bears that lives in the area. He managed to kill off 2 of them. The third just handed over their scroll. Said it wasn't worth fighting over, since she couldn't pass without her team anyway. He explained, "What scroll are you looking for anyway?" "A heaven scroll." Naruto pulled the second heaven scroll from his pocket and tossed it to him. "Follow me, we'll head back to where the girls are and camp for the night. We'll leave at first light for the tower." "Why not just meet up with the girls and leave now? A lot of things in this forest hunt at night, and they know this forest far better than you ever could. Plus, I'm sure you're getting hungry, and we have plenty of food sealed away, so let's get going." Sasuke nodded, activating his Sharingan, as the 2 of them made their way to the cave to shelter for the night. The next morning, Team Yugao, along with Sasuke, made their way to the tower. They didn't rest or even slow down until they were safely within the walls of the tower and being greeted by their team senseis. "Congratulations to you 4. You have the next few days off before the end of the exam, and before you ask, no, you may not leave the arena," Yugao explained. Sakura was seething. She had been removed from Team 7 and taken away from her precious Sasuke, all because of Naruto's jealousy that she wouldn't date him. Now she had to wait for the new academy curriculum to be implemented before she could try again and hope that they forced Naruto and Sasuke to wait for her before taking the Chunin exams. She was preparing to go out and meet with a Chunin she'd hired through her savings to train her to get the kind of body that would make Sasuke drool when her mother opened her door. "Hi Mom, what's up?" "Sakura, I need you to pack your bags. You'll be going away for a while," her mother said in a almost monotone-like voice. "Going away? Where am I going? You'll be going with me. A hooded figure smiled as he walked into the room. Mother, what's going on? Sakura asked frantically. You failed in getting Sasuke, so I've decided to sell you to this man. I'll go to the orphanage and adopt a new daughter from there and start the process over. Sasuke is preoccupied with his training right now, so I'll have plenty of time to mold a suitable daughter before he begins looking for wives for the CRA. Sakura was about to scream in protest when she was struck in the back of the neck by the hooded figure. The man lifted her under his arm and tossed a roll of bills to Mabuki. Don't spend it all in one place. Don't worry, I won't. Mabuki smirked as the man disappeared with her daughter in tow. She'd have liked to get a bit more than 10,000 Ryo for her, but the girl hadn't developed any kind of figure and lacked anything more than the skills of a basic academy student. Oh well, the little brat is someone else's problem now. As much as I loathe the idea, I may want to get on the demon's good side. Maybe even seduce him and get myself an heir who can get me access to the fortunes of the Uzumaki and the Namikaze clans. Mabuki thought as she began plotting ways to seduce the boy. Back to the Chunin exams. The first few matches of the preliminary round were, in a word, boring. Most of the matchups were fairly one-sided, though it did show how even a skilled shinobi could be easily beaten if they came up against someone of equal skill who just so happened to be opposite type, such as with Yori and Sasuke. With Orochimaru unable to mark him, Sasuke had access to his full arsenal of ranged attacks, which completely dominated Yori's close-range techniques. The same was said about Choji, a taijutsu specialist who was paired against Dosu, who utilized sound waves at close range. Eri versus Ino. Ino smirked. Well, the flunky shouldn't be a issue, she said as she headed for the stairs. Eri clenched her fist. While the dead last normally got a free pass by being paired with the top student, the lower students were the ones on the chopping block for team placements. That's why she and Ami were both placed on the reserve list due to uneven teams. Now, Eri-chan, you know that I'm the last person to advocate for violence, Naruto said. Bullshit. Liar, came the sarcastic coughs of Sasuke and Ami. Naruto sent half-hearted glares at his two friends. That being said, give that whiny brat the spanking she deserves. He smiled. Eri smiled and kissed his cheek before jumping over the railing. You can go ahead and give up now and save yourself the embarrassment. I'm sure Naruto had to carry you this far into the exams. Eri smirked. Start the match. Hayate swung his arm down and moved to watch from atop the statue with the Hokage. My money is on the Yamanaka girl, one of the nearby jonin watching said. Another shook his head. That girl was trained by Yugao. I wouldn't count her out right away. Eri smiled as Ino ran at her in the basic academy stance. She knew the Yamanaka didn't specialize in taijutsu, often leaving that portion of the battle to their Akamichi teammates, but she had at least thought the girl would have learned some kind of new form by this point. Eri merely side-stepped the widely telegraphed punch before bringing the palm of her hand down on Ino's ass. The blonde girl let out a loud yelp before grabbing her ass. What the hell? Well, Naruto-kun said, and I quote, give that whiny brat the spanking she deserves, so I did. The surrounding genin and jonin all looked at the young blonde with accusatory gazes. I was speaking figuratively. No, I think they deserve a show, she said, pondering for a moment before turning to Ino with a sickly sweet smile. And you, my dear, do deserve a spanking. She deactivated her training seals and disappeared from view. The jonin in the area were astonished. To the genin it looked as if she had simply vanished, but to their trained eyes she was simply moving at high chunin to low jonin speeds. Ino looked around worriedly before she felt a slight breeze behind her. She turned her head just in time to see Eri grab her purple lace panties and hoist them over her head. The blonde girl let out a loud scream followed by a slight moan. Oh, seems our dear Ino-chan likes it rough. Ino's cheeks gained a deep red tint to them before she felt another strike against her ass and let out a loud cry. Now submit to your new mistress. I submit. I submit. Just leave my ass alone. Winner Eri. Hayate called as Eri pulled Ino along to the observation area and sat in a stool, removing her sandals. She placed a modified paralysis seal meant for interrogations on Ino that left her unable to move from the neck down and shoved her sweaty soles in her face. And your mistress expects them spotless by the end of the matches. Considering that there are only 2 matches left, so you better get to licking. She smirked. Asuma looked as if he wanted to intervene but was stopped by Yugao, who shook her head. She made her bed, now she has to lie in it. Naruto versus Kiba. Kiba grinned. It's payback time, Naruto. I've been training to get you back for that first spar, he said, stealing glances at the erotic scene going on between Eri and Ino. Now Kiba, you wouldn't happen to be having perverted thoughts about my dear sweet Eri-chan, would you? He smiled, cracking his knuckles as a dark aura formed around him. And now Naruto-J, just be cool. Don't do anything hasty, Kiba said, waving his hands as Akamaru wisely dismounted his head and moved to let his master suffer the consequences of his own actions. Hayate followed Akamaru's lead and started the match before removing himself from the ring. Kiba was about to say more in his defense before Naruto appeared in front of him and leaped into the air, wrapping his arms around Kiba's neck before falling and slamming Kiba's face into the floor, cracking the floor and knocking Kiba out. Out of nowhere, Ami yelled from the observation post. Vintage Naruto, Eri called out, wiggling her toes in front of Ino's nose. Man, Naruto-kun ended that in an instance. You better hope that Ami-chan draws her match out a bit longer. It doesn't even feel like you're halfway done. If they're not spotless by the time we wrap up, I'll be taking you home for punishment. Ino got a slightly fearful look in her eyes as she began licking faster, though Eri smirked as she saw the hints of arousal in her eyes. Last match, Ami of Konoha versus Samui of Kumo. Naruto watched the match with interest, though Naruto had to admit he was captivated by the beauty of the short-haired blonde. As soon as the match began, Ami launched a fireball at the woman only for her to leap over it and pull out a ninjato. So you want to play this close range? Ami smirked, pulling out her tanto. 2 can play at that game. Bad move, Naruto sighed as he leaned over watching the match. Why's that, dope? Don't you have faith in Ami-chan? Sasuke asked as he watched the 2 trade blows. I do, however you have to understand. Everyone in Kumo uses a sword. Outside of specialists like Yugao-chan and Hayate, only Umbu really use swords in this village. Ami-chan is good, but she's only been training with a sword for about a month. While I'm sure Kumo drills their genin in Kenjutsu as early as the academy, just like we do in Shurikenjutsu and Taijutsu. Sasuke nodded, understanding Naruto's logic, though that didn't stop him from being immensely proud of his girlfriend and all that she had accomplished since joining Naruto's team. Samui parried a strike to her shoulder and placed her sword to Ami's neck. Ami sighed and raised her hands in defeat. I give. Hayate called the match and called the winners to the front. First match, Naruto versus Samui. Second match, Niji versus Omoi. Third match, Karui versus Eri. Fourth match, Temari versus Shikamaru. Fifth match, Shino versus Kankuro. Sixth match, Gaara versus Sasuke. Report to the stadium in 1 month's time. As the genin were being escorted from the forest, Samui turned to Naruto. I hope you've trained with that sword. It's not often one gets the chance to face one of the 7 swords, and I'd like to get the opportunity to enjoy the battle. Don't worry, Samui-chan. I'll be sure to take it nice and slow so that you can savor the experience, he said with a seductive smile. Samui looked away with a slight blush. See that you do. So what's the plan for the month? Eri asked as she sat next to Naruto and across from Yugao and Ami at the barbecue restaurant. For now, I'd like to focus on your training, though I wouldn't feel right leaving Naruto-kun to his own devices, Yugao said in slight frustration. Don't worry, Yugao-chan. I don't really plan on starting many new projects during the month. I more so plan to refine my current skills to show off my best abilities at the finals. I've already made arrangements for Fuchan and I to spar sporadically throughout the month to test my progress. Yugao smiled at Naruto's maturity. He understood that he had access to a vast well of resources that even some jonin didn't, while Eri was completely reliant on having her sensei with her. That sounds like a fine idea, Naruto-kun. After departing from the group, Eri returned to her home where she had Ino waiting for her.